All right, Chris, here we are again, episode number 2 of our podcast.
Yeah.
So, what's been going on?
What's been going on? Gosh, I thought I had a lot to talk about, and then now you ask me, and it's kind of just all slipped on my mind.
Well, that's okay. If you can't, I got a lot to talk about if you're hitting just a little, what do you call it, dry spot there.
Well, you go ahead and kick it off then, and I'm sure it'll trigger something in my mind.
All right, so I got a new cat.
Yeah,
His name's
we're talking about
Dudley.
that.
Dudley.
Dudley?
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
so there's a bunch of cats out in our backyard, and it's when I say backyard, it's really not a backyard. It's really just we have a hunk of land and then the house is just plopped on it. So it's like the backyard equals the stuff behind the house and the front yard is the stuff behind the house. So we always have cats, critters, all sorts of stuff running out. So we've got this sort of selection process that we use to bring a new cat in. So we feed a bunch of them outside. And then if one cat's friendly and lets us pet it, because it's not feral, then we let it hang out for a while, and if that works out good and we think we like the cat, then we take it to the vet and we have this whole process that we go through. And now the cat's in the house. And there's a little bit of conflict with some of the other cats, but I think it's gonna be okay actually. And so why did I get another cat? We have two cats already. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. It just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. So we'll see
But
how.
you've got a colony in the backyard then?
Yeah, small one, and they hang out. They come to the door when they want to eat, and they hang out all the time. And there's one particular cat. I'm not sure what her name is. We just call her Girl Cat. She eats all the time. She'll come by and want to be fed like 3 or 4 times a day, actually. And there's a couple of boy cats out there, and the boy cats, they'll eat their food, but she's tolerated, but she'll like kind of sneak up and eat off their food, and we feed them so much that they no longer want the dry kibble. It's like they only want the canned premium stuff. You're an outside cat. You're lucky just to get anything. So, if that means you're not hungry if you're not going to eat everything. So, anyways, that's
I always
the
thought it was interesting that we call wild cats feral cats, but we
yeah.
call wild dogs stray dogs.
Oh, how interesting. I don't know.
I mean, it seems like a loaded bias in the word choice.
Probably is actually. I mean, somebody who made it.
Somebody who likes dogs decided to call them feral. The cat's feral.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just, which is a key point in marketing. You just kind of spark something in me is that the key point in marketing is if you're trying to gain some ground, if you want to do something, you have to make sure that you label yourself before somebody else labels you, actually.
Oh,
Which,
that's something that Trump is really good at.
yeah,
Labeling
Trump's
people.
really good at
Oh
that.
gosh, he's good at that. Yeah.
Good at that. And then,
No, because one of the things that always got to me, when you went in, just a real quick delve into politics before him coming back out. Republicans are the Republicans. What the Democrats is a short word. They're not the Democrats, right?
yeah,
It's the Republican Party and the Democratic Party.
yeah,
The Republicans and the not the Democrats, they're the Democrats.
Democrats, yeah.
And that seems almost disparaging when you shorten it like that. So it almost seems like the word in and of itself is slightly disparaging. And it just occurs to me like maybe they need to rebrand it to a longer, more luxurious, not luxurious, the more stately word.
Well, with what happened in the election, they need more than to rename themselves at this point. They're going to need a
Yeah.
full
First,
overhaul.
they got to acknowledge they need to rename themselves, and then they can figure it out.
Exactly. But marketing, it's just so important actually how you name things. And in fact, I think we talked about it last time. I mean, if you don't give a name to something, then it's like you don't really know what that thing is. So it's so important to name things. And you can just make crap up and you just repeat it enough times and people think it's truth. It's amazing how humans work.
That's the way the brain works. If you hear it enough, it's true, even if it isn't.
That's the way the brain works. Okay, so I'm going to bring up another topic. Um, so the dude, what's his name? The guy that just got assassinated, the healthcare guy or whatever.
Oh,
United,
United Healthcare? Is that what it is?
United Healthcare. It is fascinating how much anger there is wrapped around that. Everybody's always like, yeah, well, that's bad. You shouldn't kill people. But, you know, these guys are just killing it. And it's so interesting about how it has nothing to do with him per se, but it's like now he's personified all this anger and all this frustration for thousands and thousands of people, actually. And
So, I mean, it's scary that, someone's gonna hunt you down and walk up behind you and shoot you. I mean, that just, I don't
assassination
care.
is
I don't
crazy.
care who you are. That should not be a fear you've got to worry about in this country.
No, no, but I will say one thing, the guy's kind of dumb. I mean, if you're the head of something major and you know a lot of people are unhappy with you,
Fourth largest company in America, they said? Something
something
like that?
big, definitely
Something
big load,
massive.
right? And people are you're getting death threats. Go hire some security. I mean, it's like,
Well, yeah, you've got other people who have less money, or maybe they're more famous, but they have bodyguards.
yeah, yeah. So if you're a security company, that'd be a great little talking point, you know. If you get death threats, you know, and you don't want to die, you should probably hire us.
I saw what's his name? Mike Rowe,
Oh
the
yeah,
guy who did Dirty
pretty
Jobs. He has
jobs.
a podcast, and he was talking to a guy here. I think it's an LA-based company that does security for famous people like that, and they have classes you can take on for your own security team or for yourself to learn to be just more aware. They have an online test to see how quickly you can spot the gun in the crowd, that sort of thing. It's
Oh,
kind of cool
nice.
to
There you
do.
go. That is so cool.
I was really bad at it. I tried it. So,
Um, that is so funny. You know, there's a class that I really wanted to take, and I just don't have enough cash right now to do it. And I already have the cash. I just don't want to spend it, you know, because it's more fun. But it's the CIA guy. It's like this Bustamante guy that have the big hair and everything and the messed up teeth or whatever like that.
I
Um,
think you sent me the link to it. Yeah.
yeah, it's so fascinating, and I can't remember what it's called, ghost tactics or something. But he said what they call it in CIA is called crash and bang, and it
Hmm.
seems like so much fun. I've always wanted to learn how to drive a car at like maximum performance, which we never typically do. Now, I don't know if you know it or not, but I'm a pilot, so I got my pilot's license in at 18 and my instrument rating at 19. And one of the things when you fly a plane, it's training, it's common training that you always fly, you know, right to the very limits of what the plane will do, so you understand where the edge is. But we never do things like that in cars. I mean, we just drive around and hope you don't hit something, but we never do maximum performance acceleration, maximum braking, just to see
No,
where the edge is, you know?
when you go into a turn on a road and the turn says however many miles per hour you can take the turn at,
Yeah,
I mean, that's designed at such a low bar.
yeah, right.
My dad always said you can always go 15 miles an hour faster than it says.
Yeah, yeah.
So I almost took it as a challenge growing up that, oh, it says 45 miles an hour. I can take it at 60, right? And
Probably no problem. Yeah,
99% of the time, that's correct. I've had to brake a couple of times where it just scared me. But
yeah.
honestly, they build a fudge factor in there, and none of us are trained to really understand what the car can do. And actually, with
No,
the new electric cars and how fast they can accelerate, I mean, I'm sure the envelope has gone much further.
yeah, yeah. You know, here we get like a little bit of snow every once in a while. And it's crazy, like driving on ice, because you just like, holy crap. You know, you think everything's gonna work a certain way, and you get a little bit of ice, and just, whew, everything changes. So it will just fall apart. You'd expect here we get snow on a regular basis, at least a couple times a year, that people would know how to do that, but they just completely fall apart. You know, it's like,
But it's like rain in California, right? When we have Storm Watch 2024, and it's like, oh yeah, it's raining. And
yeah,
then people are having accidents left and right. They don't know how to drive. They're hitting the road at 80 miles an hour in the wet.
yeah. And you would think, right? You would think, but if you thought this, you would be wrong. You would think that, hey, if it's raining, maybe it's a little dark, maybe visibility. Hey, maybe you just give a little extra space. Maybe you slow down just a little bit. I mean, you would think, but you'd be completely wrong. We usually own a company.
I used to say there's two things you cannot criticize people on: their driving and their parenting.
They're driving their parenting. Yeah.
Let's see, overtly too much reactive to any kind of criticism.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And I think, you know, since the whole purpose of this podcast is to kind of think a little bit critically and to build something. And it seems like you'd be want to be open to criticism at some point. I mean, that's what would be an interesting person. It's like I know when people criticize me, depending on my mood, I'm like, man, thank you for telling me that. I appreciate that.
I think it depends on how much ego you've got in what's being criticized. And maybe it's who is criticizing you, right? Some people are judging you as good or bad. Other people are just judging your skill or your ability. And those people you tend to be more open to taking the criticism from, where someone who's like saying you're a bad person, you're probably going to be more reactive to.
Yeah, it's probably their intention, right? Maybe some
Yeah.
people actually want to help you versus look, I'm not trying to help you. It's like when I moved to the South here in Arkansas, coming from California. Well, nobody says you guys here. Everything's y'all, right? So it's just well, apparently we got it right because now you guys it's completely not cool to say anymore,
No, y'all's better.
What's better?
One of the CIO at my old company, he was this guy, Indian background, and he had a nice, slow, deep, rich voice. He had a little bit of a southern aspect to it. I think he lived in Texas for a while, but he always says y'all.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's all encompassing. It means everyone.
Yeah. It means
Right?
everybody.
It's
Yeah, you all,
it
you,
literally is you all.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, as
I
opposed to you guys.
yeah, no, I've actually tried to include that more because you guys is not,
It's just
I guess,
very
not PC
unpopular
anymore.
now, right? Not
Maybe
PC.
I don't know if it ever was, but
Do you remember though in Toastmasters, we're both in Toastmasters. Remember Dee?
yeah,
Oh man, she would freak out if you said you guys. I'm like, Dee,
yes,
then what am I supposed to say? She says you
you,
say y'all, you say my
you,
name, say
you is singular and plural both.
say fellow
It's the
Toastmasters.
it's the perfect. Is that a pronoun? It's the perfect pronoun because it covers everything.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm learning Greek, and I'm going through the section on pronouns right now, and we're kind of sensitive about pronouns in our society right now. So this is what I figured out. I figured out instead of saying pronouns, just say their name, and you'll always be safe.
Yes, generally I agree with that, as long as you can remember their name.
Yes, I can remember it. If you can't do that,
The problem is
hey,
the people
you.
most likely to be offended are the ones that you don't know that well, which means you're less likely to know their name. Someone whose name you probably have a relationship with, such that they'll give you a little bit of grace, a little bit of leeway to make a mistake.
Yeah, it's like, dude, this is like the 27th time.
Yes.
How many more do we need? I'm like, I don't know, a couple more. Yeah, it's so interesting. It's just harder and harder to please everybody. And some
But
people say, why even try? I don't know. It's interesting.
why do we need to please everybody? Well, I don't think we should have to please everyone. But then the problem is we're being yelled at by people who says we have to please them.
Yeah,
So is it okay to ignore them because you'll be branded as whatever they want to brand you as?
whatever name.
Or do you need to go ahead and make an effort and bend yourself in knots, tie yourself in knots, or make a pretzel out of yourself to fit into what they expect? But
Well,
this
I
goes back
guess,
to what we were talking about earlier this week, the idea that the golden rule is treat others like as you want to be treated.
yeah.
But is there something more that we need today, like the platinum rules, to treat others the way they want to be treated? That
Mm,
puts a lot more onus on you. You can't just be like, I want everyone to be nice to me, I'll be nice to them. Now it's like, I want everyone to acknowledge A, B, and C about me,
yeah.
and they need to bend to my will. It's a lot
Well,
harder to do.
I mean, if you can, I mean, I don't think there's a downside to that if you can, but I don't think you have to. Now, the problem is when other people demand that you say that, then that's kind of,
Well, you can't demand anything of anyone. That's the problem, right? Because if you believe in free speech, you just can't demand someone say something. And it's your right to be offended, but it's you who's being offended. You know,
yeah, well, no,
whether or not I'm trying to offend you, you choose to be offended.
yeah, yeah. And in those, yeah, there's just a lot of rules to follow. There's a lot
Yeah,
of,
at the end of the day, if you want to be offended, you will find a way to be offended.
oh, absolutely. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. If you want trouble, believe me, trouble's not far away from you, so.
You go in expecting to be offended. You see someone coming up to you, and you know you're not supposed to be judgmental, but everyone looks at someone coming up to them. They make a judgment call based upon looks, how they're dressed, all that stuff. And then the first words out of their mouth, you're going to try to spin it to the image you've got in your head,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, you're aware you've got this image in your head, and then you're able to reframe or to actually withhold any judgment until you've been able to add more
Yeah.
information to it.
Yeah. And that's the
First
key thing.
impressions.
And we all do that actually. And then it's some version of, see, I told you. I told you so. See, this is how people are.
Gosh, what was the study where they went and they put the disfiguring marks on people's faces and then had them go out to interact with people, but before they went out to interact with people, they removed the disfiguring mark without letting them know, so they thought they still had this disfiguring mark on their
Oh,
face. And
interesting.
then they went in and interacted with people, and they interpreted the interactions as, oh yeah, they were treating me badly because of my disfiguration,
Yeah.
not realizing that it had been removed.
Yeah.
So they went in there thinking, I got this disfiguration mark or whatever on my face that's impacting this relationship or
Yeah.
this interaction, and it came true because that's how they saw it in their mind.
Yeah. 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 We all do that. Confirmation bias. It's just built into us as human beings. And we just make up anything that suits us at the
That's why
time.
conceited jerks hear what they want to hear, right? Someone who's a conceited jerk, you can insult them, and they're hearing compliments, not insults.
Exactly. Right. They're like, ah, they're just jealous, right? I'm so cool. I don't know if I told you this or not, but I used to own a studio photography studios in Irvine, California, and I did thousands of headshots. And there was one guy that came in because I would say 99.999% of people, they don't like how they look, right? It's very common in video too. It's like they don't like how they sound because they're like the first time they do a recording and they hear their voice, they're like, oh my God, I sound horrible. This is just human nature. And a lot of that has to do with how you hear yourself because certain bones, and so it's a little bit changed. And when you hear actual, and like sometimes looking in the mirror, right? Because you're always looking at yourself backwards in the mirror. You never typically see your face. And there was this one guy that was so egotistical. He's like, oh my God, I'm so good looking and I'm so this. And I thought he was just joking around. And he's like, you should give this to me for free. And I'm sure your portfolio needs this. And at the time I had a woman assistant. Her name was Labby. And he's like, if you've got any women in the office, you better send them out for the day because what they're gonna do, they're gonna fall in love with me and they're gonna leave you. And I'm like, okay, so is this just stick? Or you actually believe this stuff? Actually. But I said, you know what? Thanks for that warning. I'll take the chance that Labby's not gonna like run away and leave me. And when I say leave me, I mean she was just an employee, right? But I'll take that
Was
chance.
just out of curiosity, was he American?
Yeah, he was American and he was definitely a good-looking guy. But
Okay,
the
no,
thing,
I used to have a roommate in college who was from Lebanon,
oh, interesting.
and
Okay.
he had a kind of a similar attitude. And I always thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And I think he knew that it wasn't true, but by acting the part, he
Yeah.
got a lot of attention from
Got a
women.
lot of attention. Yeah. And the funny thing is, when I talked to him more, I mean, he was a total, I mean, like, he was a mama's boy. And I'm like, oh, what are you going to use these pictures for? Oh, they're for my mama. They're going to be Christmas presents. Like that. Man.
Yeah, that's good.
So I don't know. I went down that road. I just thought it was like hilarious or whatever. I will give you a compliment though, is that man, your lighting looks really good. Very
Well,
organic,
that
very
was
natural.
based upon the input you gave. So the speech I did this morning, it was really early. It was like 7 a.m. and the lighting, we had a lot of fog, so the lighting was bad. So
Yeah.
I had to augment with some internal lights. But as
Yeah.
soon as it got bright enough, I was able to switch. And
Yeah.
yeah, there are no lights in here. It's just the window.
Beautiful. Just give it to you like God made
The,
it.
the other thing is, you wanted a blur in the background, but of course the blur kind of makes the edges look pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah,
This is that portrait lighting setting in um, in Zoom,
yeah,
and it just does a slight blur, so you can see like my hat,
yeah,
kind of blurs right
yeah,
there.
yeah,
So but the thing is, it's a lot less noticeable than the stronger blur.
Yeah.
And I think this helps to give you that kind of distance you were going for, when you focus in on the foreground and blur the background.
Yeah, you
So
want
I
to.
kind of like this setting a lot.
It's nice. It looks good. It's just a little bit of blur. It's still very, very clear what's behind you, but it just is not razor sharp, right? So you're in focus. Things in focus is
What
where.
I noticed though is like when I play the ukulele,
Yeah.
the head of the ukulele is blurred.
Oh, see, that's a problem. We know that
So
software. The
if I
real.
pull it here,
Yeah.
so I'll need to figure out a way to have a different view when I'm actually performing and stuff.
Yeah, we're still not there yet, as opposed to just a real traditional like camera with the right lens or whatever. I mean, this is probably some sort of AI filter going on. It just doesn't get it perfect yet, you know.
Yep.
Soon, soon it will though. Soon it will. Well, that's all I got off the top of my head. What else are we gonna talk?
I want to go back to, if you don't mind diving into, you were talking about the CEO who got killed this week,
Oh yeah.
and you were talking about a lot of pent up frustration, and I think there's a lot of things that have been building for the past 20-ish plus
Yeah,
years
right. Right.
that are coming to a head. And I mean, we see it in the election of Trump and all the other things.
Yeah.
But healthcare becoming a money making business for the investor, for the stakeholders, for people who
Yeah.
own stocks,
Yeah.
as opposed to taking care of the people that, the purpose of healthcare in the first place is to take care of the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we talk about how great our healthcare is in the U.S. and yeah, I think quality wise, yes, it is incredible what we've
Yeah.
got, but we pay through the nose for that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wait in line like people in the UK and Canada do.
Yeah.
But when I lived in Japan, I was on national healthcare in Japan, and it was pretty darn good. I was impressed. And
Okay.
for the majority of people, for the average person, that kind of I don't necessarily want nationalized healthcare, but I do think that it's something that would help a lot of people.
Yeah. It would definitely help a lot of people. I used to work for this guy. He was very wealthy, and we were talking about the poor one time,
Hmm.
and he was telling me that the best thing I can do for the poor is not become one of them. And he was just very clear on the fact that like you need money, right? When you've got money and resources, everything becomes significantly easier for you. And it kind of sucks that we live in that world, but it does appear to be that's how things work, you know?
I've often wondered about, like the whole UBI, Universal Basic Income, the
Yeah.
idea of giving everyone money. Who was the guy who ran, the Democrat who ran on the prior election, tried to give everyone $1,000 a month or something like that? I forgot his name. Asian guy. And I think conceptually, it's a neat idea, that we're going to give everyone some basis that's enough for them,
Yeah, right.
whatever that is. And then they can go off and use their time however is best. So if
Yeah.
they're happy living at sustenance level, they can live at sustenance level and they're
Yeah.
covered. And in a rich enough society, it's almost like that's where your taxes go, or that's where that's where the money goes that you pay into
Yeah.
society. The problem I have is my idea of the minimum basics is probably pretty low compared to other people's idea of what the minimum basics are,
Yeah.
right? And so conceptually, things are going to get cheaper over time. AI is going to change the way we produce stuff. I mean, you already look at
Yeah.
what we produce today and how cheap it is compared to what we produced before. You
Yeah.
can't
Right.
even buy a video cassette player anymore. But yeah, towards the end, before we moved over to CDs, sorry, DVDs, you could get them under $100. And when
Yeah.
they first came out, they were thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Something got cheaper because we learned how to make it better and cheaper.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I think a lot of the things that we want in our day-to-day lives are going to get cheaper and easier to produce, almost not to the level of free, but to the level of very inexpensive. And then
Well,
we can incorporate those into like the base minimum. But at the end of the day, you still need, money serves a purpose beyond getting those resources, in my mind.
well, I just view it as like a medium of exchange, right? Something that's common that everybody wants.
Money is energy,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
right? Just like gasoline is energy, electricity energy, all these are things that allow us to store work.
Yeah.
And the more money you have, the more work you have available to you.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
spend that money to get the gardener, so that's work. You can
Yeah.
spend that money to buy an education, right? There's all these things that it makes available to you that and that's the to me is just like having power, just like having everything else.
Yeah.
Money is something you need for that. But if we all have the same amount, then we all have the same amount of power, right?
That's not going to last for very long.
No, because what why would I continue to strive to be better
Yeah.
without some way of getting more for it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not everyone is altruistic enough to say, I'm just going to keep getting better because that's the meaning of life and that's what I should be doing, right? Some people need tangible gains to be able to show that it's worth their time and effort.
Yeah. Maybe, monks and nuns, maybe, but outside of that,
Well, I'm
probably.
sure there's others. There are probably a lot of service industry type things that people enjoy the service itself, and as long as they could live a productive life, they might be okay doing that. But I think the real people who lead and inspire change, the ones who are game changers in the world, some of them are out for money, some of them are out for fame and fortune, other ones are out to just have an impact. But there's some kind of a power thing that they're after that you know makes them be at the head of the game, right? There's the top 10%, and then there's the top 1%,
Yeah.
and then there's everyone else.
And there's everyone else. Yeah. So you got to kind of decide where you want to be. My thought is I don't want to be really wealthy, but I want to have enough money where I don't have to worry about stuff. Because then what that gives me is it gives me a lot more autonomy, it gives me a lot more time actually. Because the challenge is when you have a lot of money, most of the time people want to take it away from you. So then you start spending more and more time guarding it and defending it as opposed to making it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people build wealth
Yeah, they build it.
by
Yeah.
guarding it.
Yeah. Oh,
That
yeah,
the,
absolutely.
the traditional old school method is just to save it, right?
Well, when you save it, but you invest it, right? I mean, you put it in the market, which is where all my money's at. And these horrible healthcare companies, I mean, they make me a lot of money. So, I mean, they
Well,
may be
and
throwing over a lot of other people, but I think last year S&P 500 was up like 25% or something. I mean, that's
see.
crazy.
So, is it really money,
Well, it's a fiat currency. It's
right?
value because other people value, but it has no inherent value,
Right. So the I'm not saying we
currency.
should go back on the gold standard, but when you had something like gold backing the dollar, you
Yeah,
knew
right.
exactly how much money there was in the economy.
Yeah.
Now, you just create money,
Yeah.
which causes its own problem. I mean, when you can go to the Federal Reserve, when you're a big bank and you can go to the Federal Reserve and say, I just want to have $500 million so I can start loaning it out, and they're like, great, that'll grow the economy. Well, yeah, it'll grow the economy, but you just created $500 million
Yeah.
from nothing,
Yeah.
which devalues every other dollar that's out there.
Poofs it into existence. Yeah. Yeah. It devalues it, but then you need enough of it so you can do the transaction. So hopefully, this is why they strive for maybe 2-3% inflation rate over time, right? So they can grow the economy in a controlled kind of way. And without inflation, we'd be in serious trouble with the debt, right? Because the whole idea of the debt, or at least paying it back, is that we're never going to pay it back. But maybe we can grow our way out of it. Maybe we can, keep it as a certain percentage of GDP and not go over
So
it.
that's something. I was listening to the Thomas Sowell book, Basic Economics. It's like 25 hours on audiobook. But he was talking specifically about debt and
Yeah.
and this myth about paying debt back.
Yeah.
Because in the years in American history where the government has paid back debt, has actually had not a deficit but actually had a surplus,
Yeah.
the economy has suffered. The
Interesting.
debt the debt is actually one of the things that drives the growth and the growth is what keeps us able to maintain the debt, the growing debt.
Yeah.
So it was interesting because when you think about it, all the reason there's so much money, the reason the economy is so big is because money is moving a lot,
Well, it's moving
right?
constantly.
And
Yeah.
when money moves a lot, one of
Yeah.
the ways to do it is to create debt so people can spend more money.
Yeah. 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 I mean, typically our economy is consumer driven. That's why we have so much consumer debt.
But when you buy a house, you
Yeah.
probably don't have enough money to buy the house outright.
Almost certainly no. Almost.
So that means that, let's say you have $100,000, you put that down on a $500,000 house.
Yeah.
That means you borrow money and then you've borrowed $400,000, but you've shoved that into the economy.
Yeah.
You're paying it off with future efforts.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but the point being, there's now $500,000 in the economy when you only had $100,000.
Yeah. Right. Look at that. Poof. Yeah.
So for the next 30 years, while you're paying off that loan, there's an extra $400,000 out there doing work.
Well, and it's even more than that because think in terms of, and I don't know much about, I should know about it. I'm a finance major. They taught me this, but I don't remember it. But the concept, let's say I get $100, right? I take that $100 and I go to the grocery store and I spend it. And so that represents $100 of movement in the economy. But now that $100 goes to pay
Yep.
vendors and goes to pay people. And so you've got this sort of, if this is not the term, this is
I
got,
think it was times 12. I don't know what
yeah,
it's
you know what you're
called, but
doing.
there was
Yeah.
this idea that every dollar spent is equivalent to $12 in the economy or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Especially if the government spends it, you know?
Yeah. Well, that was interesting. Oh gosh, that was something I went down a YouTube rabbit hole and it was explaining. I forgot the terminology, but it was explaining how the Federal Reserve creates money and then the government borrows money, and they had green dollars versus yellow dollars, and they were explaining how the money moves around. It was really interesting
Yeah.
from that aspect.
It's so interesting. There's one guy, I can't remember his name. He wrote the book called Principles. I can't remember. He's a very smart dude.
Ray Dalio.
Yeah, Ray Dalio. But he says, above all this, that the only thing that really grows is when you actually make something. So, the Wall Street guys, they can spin it, you can flip it, and you can monopolize it. But at some point, somebody's got to actually make something of value for somebody else. And he
But
goes,
I mean, that's the whole idea of the value of gold is in the digging and finding of the gold,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? Aside from being a rare resource, it's actually getting the resource.
yeah,
I mean, that's the whole idea behind Bitcoin mining was, to by putting in the effort to mine the Bitcoin,
yeah,
that's where the value of the Bitcoin comes from, is the mining.
yeah. But the thing is, Bitcoin has no inherent value, right? I mean, it only has inherent value because the
So,
other guy thinks it has value.
well, but that's true of anything. Any
No,
commodity, yeah.
no, 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 no. Like, let's say I have a shovel, right? That shovel has inherent value. It can do something. Like if I
Let's
give
say
you
you have a dollar.
$1,
Is there any inherent value in it? The
the
paper?
paper, the ink, maybe,
Hmm.
But the
See,
only
the
reason it has
idea, I
value,
think the idea of mining Bitcoin is that the money you spend on the equipment and the energy and all that stuff to put into it, that's the investment. So
yeah,
yeah, right. And then that then translates to, I have some amount of Bitcoin that started off as the value of how much it cost to mine it. And then it goes into the market and then it gets traded back and forth and the value goes up based upon how much someone's
yeah.
willing
See,
to
I
pay.
don't think so actually, because there's really no true value. That's just an algorithm. They just made it really hard. There's nothing inherently of value in Bitcoin. I mean, it's a fiat currency.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it is, but the idea was to divorce it from any single entity that could control it.
Yeah, no, I
Right?
got you. I got you.
That's the thing that makes Bitcoin different, is the fact that the government can't just go in and say, boom, this is what we're going to double the amount of money in the economy, which then halves the value of the money you've got.
Yeah, right, right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's a set, what was it, 21 million Bitcoin? That's it. That's
Yeah,
all
there's
there'll ever
some
be.
amount of it, yeah. Which then
Right?
and then it gets harder and harder through some halving cycle. And if you guys are watching this, please put in the comment. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just rambling at this point, but I'm sure somebody will actually know what's going on. But yeah, it gets harder and harder and harder. But now Bitcoin's at almost 100,000, maybe a little over
Hmm.
right now, actually. So I'm sure miners are going to be coming back saying, hey, wait a minute. If I spend this time and resources, I may get a little something back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Money's
I'm still not sure how blockchain technologies work without some authority behind it. I understand that how the old school worked with the 50% plus one of the servers or whatever out there needed to agree on a value of something,
yeah.
and then so you had majority rule in essence, and anyone could have a server out there. So you were, it was open to anyone. It was, it wasn't just limited to certain groups of
Yeah.
people. But just because of the sheer number of transactions that occur in the economy on a credit cards and cash and everything, how you scale that in that kind of environment is just, I still don't understand. You know, it's been around for a long time. I'm sure a lot of people figure stuff out, but I bet you in most cases they have to rely on some central authority to add in order to be able to scale. Like I know there were several blockchains that were being used by financial institutions and by healthcare institutions and the like, and almost all of those had like an authorizing like licensing body behind it that was able to put in some level of framework.
Well, that's what's the other one? The other one, Ethereum or whatever like that,
Ethereum, yeah.
where it's based on it doesn't take so much energy. It's more of people agreeing this is who's going to get and who's going to make Bitcoin. It's not like just based by raw effort that anybody can do. So there is a little more, it seems like authority to that. But I don't really know how it works. I'm totally talking about stuff I have no idea about. All I
Uh,
know,
I think it's funny that blockchain is kind of fallen by the wayside anymore. They don't talk
yeah.
about it as much. It's
And
all AI now, so
as an investor, if you ever want to make money, you just watch what I do, and you do the exact opposite, actually. So, for instance, I had a little bit of Bitcoin, and I just recently sold it right before the election because I was thinking, well, if Trump wins, it'll probably go up, but I'm not sure how he's going to win, and it's probably going to go down. So, of course, I sold it like a week before the election, and like now it's been a couple months, it's like literally I'm up like 60% on where it was or something. It's just absolutely ridiculous. All I do is lose money when I invest stuff. So I just don't invest anymore. I just invested in America, put my money in an S&P 500 index fund, and just let things go, you know.
yeah, we had to go to the bank a couple last week, I think it was, to set up my wife's 403B.
Oh, for the
I
like
think
a
that's right.
whatever that is, like a
And it's like a 501(k), but it's for whatever, a government job or whatever it was. She's
oh,
working
okay, yeah,
for the she started working for the school district. But they were talking about, okay, so how do you want your money invested, and
yeah,
since it's a local credit union, they have a lot more limits on the limited selection of funds and the
yeah,
like.
right, right,
But I'm looking at this going, okay, well, let's look at the S&P 500,
right.
and they're saying, oh, so this is a more aggressive fund, and this is this, and here's
Yeah,
the management fee and all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at this going, all right, show me the lifetime of the fund, how it's done versus the S&P 500, right? Because isn't it Buffett that says, his recommendation is just put all your money in the S&P 500, and
pretty much, yeah,
it,
pretty
it'll
much.
that's will take minimal effort to manage, and has the lowest cost to
Yeah, yeah. I
manage.
mean, I think the expense ratio is like point like something, just a tiny. It's because there's really not a
I
whole
think
lot.
it's 0.15 for the one I'm looking at. Yeah.
Just something very low. Yeah. And because really what you're doing in when you're investing in like a index fund like that in S&P 500, I mean, you're investing in America, definitely, but also so many companies, even though they're American companies, have just global impact everywhere. So for all intents, I mean, you're investing in most of the world, you know?
I think the idea though is that a lot of the investments I've seen now are now up into the 20-30% foreign companies and the like.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there are a lot of, and even a lot of the companies that we have in the US that you think are American companies, they're not.
No, no,
You
they're
know,
headquartered. Yeah, right.
a lot of the pharmaceuticals are German and French and all these other things. So
Yeah, who's the one? I can't remember where it's made. What's the Ozympia or whatever? That drug that just
is that
blockbuster.
Novartis?
Novartis. Yeah, they're not in the US or
I think
whatever.
they're French.
It's so funny because they're like, oh, we're not going to like give this shit to our. It's horrible for it. It's just it's
Well,
sell it to the
so
Americans, you know.
so where I used to work, we contracted with companies to have new domain names,
Yeah.
dot whatever, dot org, dot com. Well, two companies applied for dot merc. And it turns out there's a German dot merc and there's an American dot merc. So there's a German merc and an American merc.
Yeah.
And they were the same company until World War One, where they split off.
Hmm.
And they don't like each other, and they sue the heck out of each other in multiple countries. And so our company was stuck between both of them, threatening to sue if we let the other one go through. And so it took a long time to get that resolved. It took years and years and years to get that
Yeah.
resolved.
I could imagine.
Um,
I could imagine.
and I think Adidas and Puma used to be the same company, two brothers or something. And again, they broke apart during World War One or two. I don't remember which one. Uh, I don't know if you got this store where you are, Aldi.
Yeah, it's like a
So,
German grocery store. Yeah, it's
yeah, it's
some.
a German grocery store, but there's an Aldi North and an Aldi South, and again, they split up, I think, during the war as well. So they were different ones, and they happen to own Trader Joe's. But that's a joint venture that they own Trader Joe's under. And the funny thing is, if you go to an Aldi in Germany, there's a Trader Joe's section that actually has Trader Joe's goods. It's kind of funny.
You know, I wish as Americans we do that. We're so polarized on everything. We're so ideologically assigned on a principle. Most other countries are not like that. They're like, well, they have their like belief system, but it's like, look, and if we can make some money, we're willing to bend some of our beliefs a little bit. Actually, they're not quite so dogmatic like we are.
Well, we value, well, if you look at what like core American values, the idea of freedom and the idea of being self-reliant and all these aspects, but they center around the individual.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And in a lot of countries, they didn't have the luxury of centering around
Yeah.
individuals. They had to center around families and communities and the like.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more acceptance of giving up individual rights on behalf of the community. And in
Yeah.
America, it was like, screw the community, it's about me.
It's about me. Yeah.
And that's a great thing for a lot of the growth and power that America has had over the two and a half centuries.
Yeah.
But when you think about that, that also puts you down a rabbit hole where you can get very self-centered,
Yeah. Oh,
right? And I think that's what's happened with so many of the groups that are in our society today. They're self-centered to the point where they can't accept other opinions that are different than their own.
yeah. Yeah. And then you're a horrible racist, homophobic, whatever, if you don't agree exactly how I agree with actually. Yeah. Under the
Yeah.
vibes of this is all what do they call it? We're so inclusive of everybody except for you.
Well, if you don't have an opinion on something, you're scum.
Yeah.
And if you have the opposite opinion on it, you're still scum.
Yeah.
I mean, the concept is I can look at something and go, you know what? I don't have a strong opinion either way on it. I could argue, defend it either way. And
Yeah.
someone will look at me and go, well, you're wrong. There's something wrong with you. You need to have an opinion on this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, why?
Yeah. I don't know. And I think that's probably a small percentage. I think most of America, they don't really talk. They don't rip. They're just like, look, I just want to live a life. I just want to have a decent job. Send
What
my
did we
kid,
call it in the 80s and 90s? The silent majority?
something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Most of us don't want to be involved in politics. Most
Oh,
of
yeah.
us don't want to be involved in these arguments. Yes, we've got opinions, but we're not willing to go fight for them because
No.
they aren't that big a part of our lives. There are things that you're willing to fight for and things that you're not willing to fight for, and everything in the world doesn't need to be something that I have to fight for. You know,
No, because you're going to lose eventually, or even if you don't lose, you're going to get really tired after a while.
you're gonna get really tired. I've got like you can have one or two causes that you're willing to fight for. I
Yeah.
can't have 40. So
No, 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 exactly. So then, what cause are you willing to fight for?
I think what I would really what the causes I'm really willing to fight for are the right for everyone to get an education
Yeah,
and the importance of making sure people understand what that is. Because an education isn't just being able to spout information back. I mean, training factory workers, which is what our education system was designed for.
yeah, no,
Carnegie and all those wanted people to be able to manage factories. That's a lot of rote learning,
yeah,
right? Actually thinking and being able to talk, kind of the old school rhetoric and learning logic and being able to do all those things, the things that we want, that we're trying to grow people to do, to have critical thinking.
yeah, yeah,
Those are the things that improve society in my mind. They're the things that add value to the relationships you're in. When you can look at something and say, "Oh, I know how I can fix this. Oh, I know how I can make this better. I know how I can add to this." Right? Um, Life is. I've been obsessed recently with process improvement, and I kind of view evolution as the ultimate. Right? Evolution is all about optimization for whatever environment you're in.
uh, yeah, 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 right.
But if you don't evolve, you die. So it's
Yeah, pretty
all
much. Well, and pretty well. The only thing we know
but
for
to
sure
me
is
that
everybody's going to
if
die.
I extrapolate from that, then process improvement and making things better is should be a goal in everyone's life. And how you interpret it and how you add value, that can vary depending on your skills and your tendencies and the like. But at the end of the day, what have you added to the world today,
Yeah.
right? And so I think education is the fastest way to raise people out of poverty. It's the fastest way to empower people to make change.
Yeah.
It's not going to fix everything, and it doesn't fix the fact that we still need your people who are the mavericks, who break the rules, who figure out ways around things, and who challenge us.
Yeah.
But for 95, 99% of the people in the world, education will raise the quality of their life.
Well, there's a book called Republic I read a long time ago, actually. And it's like the answer to everything was you just got to get smarter, right? That was the key to the whole thing. And get the right kind of, king philosopher king, whatever it was up there. But it's like that's why I believe you're almost right. Almost getting smarter will solve almost every single problem. Being able to think better, think more clearly about the situation, not
So
get so.
how do you square smarter with emotion?
Well, you got to balance those, right?
Are they opposed or can they be the same thing?
They can be the same thing. They can be opposed. Yes, all those are true.
Because it seems to me, like I said in other conversations we've had, that we seem to be going through a phase of emotion in society, at least in
Well, we've
our
always
society.
been, right? We've always have been,
But
right?
yes, but I think we went through a phase of kind of the authoritarian phase, where people with power had power and they told us what to do.
Yeah.
Then we went through the Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution, where logic and science and industrial, yeah, all that kind of was a huge phase for us and allowed the growth, in most cases the growth of the West over the East in many cases, but still allowed growth of societies. It allowed the growth of wealth. It allowed us to
Yeah.
to change people's lives drastically.
Yeah.
And now we're at a relative comfort level to where people can now worry about the emotional side of things. And the emotional side of things, I think, also includes like the recent, I don't know recent, but the higher level of awareness around mental concerns and mental disorders and issues that
Yeah.
people have there. And I think that's tied heavily to the emotions. I think emotions and the way your brain works are
Oh my
big
God.
aspects that we're much more
Yeah.
aware of and much more willing to talk about than we were in the past. So I think we're kind of moving through this progression. um, we may go back as populism grows. We may go back to an authoritarian standpoint,
Well,
right?
everything cycles. That's the whole point of this book is everything cycles through,
But I
and
mean, authoritarian. All the talk of fascism and all that kind of stuff that happened. Is that just part of this cycle? Do we go through a phase that is authoritarian and fascist or semi-fascist or whatever you want to call it, and then we go back to then reason comes back and we go back through another golden age of logic and reason? I mean, is that what's going to happen?
yeah, 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 of course. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We cycle around because it's a cycle. Everything's a cycle. You cycle through and then it gets really good and then it gets really bad and then you're like, wait a minute, we gotta fix this.
Yeah.
We gotta do something
But
else.
then if you look at like Ray Dalio's cycle, right? He has cycles about like where the
Yeah.
world powers are, right? China's the next world power. We're on the way down. China's on the way up.
And
And I think it makes a lot of. It's a nice, clean way to look at things.
yeah.
But I do wonder at the speed we live at today is so much faster than the speed we lived at 100, 200 years ago that does the cycle change? Does it shorten? Is it now, what was an 85-year cycle is now an 8-year cycle?
Oh, I think so. Sure. Yeah, yeah. I think so. Absolutely.
I
Just
mean,
because we go faster, right?
because it looks like China's on the rise, but it also looks like China's falling apart from some aspects too, right? There's a lot of issues that are going on there. So
Yeah.
I wonder if the cycle, how the cycle is impacted as the new technologies come out, as our focus moves away from sustenance to actually constructing the lifestyle that we think everyone should have.
Yeah, that's a good question. And that I don't know. Typically, I know what happens is the typical cycle is people get out of poverty where they actually can eat. They don't have to work all the time just to do basic things. And they actually have a little bit of time to start thinking about stuff. And then when people start thinking, they start wanting stuff and people deliver it. And then eventually they start to feel oppressed and they go kill the guy at the top. And then a new guy comes up. And it's like that is the cycle. I don't, and maybe it may change speed, it may be faster, slower. I don't know. I don't know actually. But the
Well,
cycle,
I mean, you think about the fact that the electric light, the candle,
yeah.
all made people have more time to do stuff.
Yeah, because
It
now
made
you
everyone more
could read at
productive.
night, right? You
It
know,
made everyone more productive, in
yeah, right.
essence. Well,
Yeah,
even if you couldn't read, you could craft leather goods in your
yeah,
house or whatever. You could actually produce something
yeah.
at night. So technology doesn't make our lives better. Technology makes us more effective and efficient, and
But it makes it easier.
therefore, we're able to then put some effort into the next step to make the improvement.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think technology in and of itself makes our lives better. It gives us the
But,
opportunity to find ways to make our lives better.
but see, most people don't do that. Most people take that extra time, they turn it into comfort, and they sit
Oh
there and
yeah.
drink beer and watch Netflix for
Well,
3 hours every night, you know?
because we've introduced so many new types of comfort and we've brought down the cost of it so much
Yeah.
that instead of saying I need to make more money so I can afford nicer goods or nicer, better vacations or nicer alcohol or whatever it is that I'm
Yeah.
into, now, a better cut of steak. Instead of doing that, we've brought the cost of all that down at the same time we've given you time.
Yeah.
And now instead of, splitting your time with useful activities and fun, it's all fun.
How fun. Yeah, it's awesome because think about like before, or especially if you go camping, there's a lot of work you've got to do. Right? If you want to build a fire, you got to go out and chop some wood, and you got to do this and you got to do that. It's like now I just have this cool little AC heater thing. I just literally dial in the temperature and it just goes there. It'll stay there within 1 degree constantly, actually. It's a beautiful thing, actually.
Yeah,
I don't
when
even have to do
people.
that. I can program the damn thing. It'll just automatically go to the temperature I pre-programmed. I mean,
So yeah, I have mixed feelings about because camping. I like camping, but I don't like it to be too comfortable.
yeah.
But then again, my level of camping is car camping. Other people are like, "That's not camping. You need to hike in." And I'm like, so, so even though I can look at someone who goes glamping or someone who goes RVing and go, "Yeah, you've got it easy. You're not working hard enough." And someone can do the same thing for me and say, "Well, you got a car. You don't even walk there."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, the game of golf. It's
Hmm.
really interesting because we use golf carts, but the real game of golf is actually a walking game. It's not running around carts drinking beer, so which so many people love to do. But I watch like there's this YouTube channel that has like old like like New York or Chicago or something like 100 years ago or 150 years ago, and they colorized it. And it's so cool because one thing you don't see is any fat people in there.
Oh yeah.
It's quite amazing actually.
Well, I like when you go to any really dense metropolitan city, even in the U.S. Today, you'll still see a lot of obese people, but you'll see a lot more fit people than we had here in Southern California. Because we drive everywhere. But yeah, I mean, I go to San Francisco and the people can walk up the hills, and they're still big people compared to
Yeah,
like
yeah, right.
Europeans or other countries. But um, remember, in China, it used to be a compliment to say, "Have you gained weight?" Because it meant
Well,
you were wealthy and you had money and you could buy better foods,
yeah,
right? And then when your industrial base gets good enough and you can produce stuff cheap enough,
yeah.
then overweight becomes a sign of poverty.
All right.
Being fit is a sign of wealth.
Yeah, because it's way more expensive to eat healthy, right? It's way more expensive. I mean, geez, fast food, McDonald's, Del Taco, Taco Bell, whatever like that. I mean, you can have a meal for $3. And I know some of those companies are in China, and you're starting to see fat Chinese people now, which is
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's just unheard of.
Well, it's when you can make calories so cheap,
So cheap. Yeah.
right? And you look at it, how many for $1? How many calories can I make in beef, in pork, in chicken? For
Yeah.
the same dollar, how many calories can I make in sugar, in corn, in flour,
Oh, a lot.
right? And then when I start saying, and then for $1, how many more calories can I get by actually using corn syrup versus sugar, or whatever all these processed foods are versus the others?
Yeah.
And because of government subsidies, because of mass production and economies of scale, they're able to produce the fake stuff so much cheaper than the natural stuff.
So much.
And you end up with people who eat that. And over time, that has an impact. And,
My,
and
yeah, 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 yeah. My,
how many calories do you have sitting around in your house right now? And if we go back 100 years, how many calories did someone have sitting around in their house?
probably less than I do right now, actually. It's just so easy to get.
Yeah, we've got bags of chips because my family loves chips.
Yeah,
We got bags of crackers and cookies.
yeah.
We've got bread. We've got, bags of flour. If I were to just to go through there, how many millions of calories do I have stored up currently in the house?
I don't think you have a million, but I'd say tens of thousands, maybe, you know.
Million? Yeah, are you kidding me? I've got 100,000 on my body right now.
Well, you make a point.
I mean, it's 3,500 calories per pound. Every 10 pounds is 35,000 calories. If you're 30 pounds overweight, you got 100,000 calories just on your body. So when you think about it that way, a bag of sugar is going to be how many thousands of calories, and so
No,
it
that's
just
like fascinating. Yeah, I have no
so
idea.
wait. I wonder if anyone's ever done that study. You know, American households over the course of the last 100 years, how many calories do they have in the house at any given time?
Oh, hang on. I'm Googling right now, actually. Well, oh,
As
it's not that much.
ChatGPT.
So I got a pound of sugar has 1,775 calories. So maybe not that much.
Well, a pound of sugar would be 454 grams times 4 calories, 1,600 calories. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
right.
way.
Whereas a pound of fat would be 9 times 454, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
it's nine calories per gram of fat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's going to be roughly 3,500.
yeah.
So it really depends on what you're talking about. But if it's carbs, then it's 1,600 calories a pound. If it's protein, it's 1,600 calories a pound, and if it's fat, it's 3,500 calories a pound.
Yeah.
But you probably have a gallon of olive oil or canola oil or something in the house,
Oh yeah, probably.
right?
Yeah, yeah. No, maybe you're right. I got a few bottles. It
That's eight
looks like.
pounds. 8 pounds times 3,500. You're
Yeah.
talking what? 7 times 28,000 calories just in a bottle of a gallon of oil.
That's amazing, isn't it? I never really thought about that
Yeah,
actually.
you could live. Okay, obviously it's not the right nutrient mix, but you could live off that for 2,000 calories a day.
Oh
Right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
could live
yeah.
off that for 12 days, just drinking oil.
Just drink some olive oil. I mean, it's calories. Yeah, exactly. That's fascinating. That is interesting. Man, we've got it good. Maybe we should be appreciative of how good we've got it. Because
That would be an
now,
interesting
though,
aspect, right?
but now what I want myself to do, what I want you to do, and I want everybody to do, is I want you to think. But then what I want everybody to do is like the David Goggins thing, is intentionally put yourself into difficult situations where I make that choice.
That is tough,
Yeah.
right? Because we shy away from pain. I was thinking about this. My knee has been hurting for the past couple of weeks, and I'm wondering if it's because of my diet. I've been introducing more carbs into my diet.
Yeah.
Um, but like at the beginning of the day, it's not a problem. I've had, this knee has had surgery. I'm missing my PCL, I think it is, in the back, in the back. But by midday, it's hard for me to lift the leg and bend it like this.
Ooh.
On my good leg, I can do that no problem all the time, right? On my
Mhm.
bad leg, it's like it hurts. I can do it, but it hurts. And so I shy away from doing that. And then when I notice I'm shying away, I sit down and I force myself to bend it. And
Yeah.
then after 3 or 4 bends, it doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Right.
it's like we just shy away from it. And if you're not paying attention to it, you just avoid it.
Yeah. And you get fat and slow and lazy and weak.
And I think that it's the discipline, right? That's more important.
But this,
It's not the motivation, it's not the willpower, it's the scheduling of the action. Because willpower will break.
yeah, and willpower is not. I mean, this is an argument I'm not sure I've been thinking through in my mind. Some people say we have a limited resource of it. Other people says no, that's not true. When you do hard things, it actually changes your brain where now you can do more hard things, which I tend to kind of agree with that. Um,
Yeah, but at 11:30 at night, when you're tired and you're hungry and you're craving something sweet to eat, do you have the willpower to say no to that?
of course
Do
I
you
do.
have the ability to get your mind to think about the consequences? Do you have, or are you like, crap, I don't care. I just want to feel better right this moment.
Well, that's what I do. That's what I do. But I do have the ability to say no, yes. Because I know when I was on a diet, I was eating really clean for like 3 or 4 months in a row. And I mean, when I say clean, I mean there was no bad food going in
Mhm.
whatsoever. So I know that I can do it. I just had a really good reason to do it.
Well, and so then it's not necessarily willpower that's motivating you, right? I think there's
Well, your
discipline
why. Yeah, why you want to do it.
discipline in service to some goal
Some goal, yes.
is what keeps you focused and I don't say motivated because I think quite often you don't want to do it,
Yeah, you don't want to do it, but you
right?
feel like you have to do
Like
it.
I when I'm motivated to do something, I actually want to do it.
Yeah,
I don't want to exercise.
yeah, right,
I
right.
don't want to feel pain,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um,
That's why you got to go to jujitsu, man. Go to jujitsu every single day, and you work through all those issues actually, and you get better and you get stronger, and it sucks.
but that's the idea, right? I mean, when you look at people who've had really hard lives,
Yeah,
they either fall apart or they get really strong,
you get stronger. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Did you, you know, did you have an abusive childhood? Was your, did you lose a parent when you were young? What happened? Were you living in a war-torn environment? All
yeah,
those types of things will have an impact
yeah,
on you, and it can tear you apart, or it could be something that you get through and you get
yeah,
stronger.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And
I
some
think
people
that
break and others don't.
so this is why and this goes back to that Adlerian psychology idea, though, versus Freudian psychology idea. Freud says, "Oh, these bad things happened to you in the past, and that's why you are the way you are today."
Yeah,
And Adlerian says, "These things happened in the past. So what? You are what you want to be today."
yeah,
And I think that for the ones who are successful, that's probably what it is. It's like I don't want to let this thing define who I am.
right. Well, I know like wealthy people, they they typically are wealthy and they're screwed up in their head, right? Because they are so fearful of like being poverty. There's this guy I used to know, he's a good friend of mine. He had like, I don't know, 10, 20, $30 million in the bank, right? Some amount. He wouldn't tell me how much, but he's like, it's well north of 10 million, right? And I'm like, why the hell do you work then? Because he says, I work because I know if one thing goes wrong, I could go back into poverty again. And so it's more of fear that's driving me than anything else. And I'm like, fascinating. And that's a very common.
Well, so one thing I thought was interesting when in that audiobook I was listening to on economics was comparing the cultural differences. He calls it human capital differences, but based upon the culture, right? Some cultures value education more, some
Yeah,
cultures value, whatever that you value in the culture. Um, and sometimes when you have transplanted groups, ethnic groups or countries or whatever, people who come in, their values actually don't work in their own countries, but when you put them in a different country where the resources are different and the
yeah.
environment's different, they succeed very well,
Yes,
right?
yes,
But
right.
one of the things he was mentioning was he was comparing the way rich people in Europe acted, during the 17 1800s versus the way English rich people acted.
Oh, interesting.
And apparently the English expected their offspring, the rich offspring, to go
Yeah,
off and make a living as a
yeah,
lawyer, as a businessman, or serve in the military. So it's something like that added value in that sense. And apparently a lot of the the rich on the continent in Europe just lived off the wealth. And a
yeah,
lot of them suffered because they weren't expected to be
yeah,
additive to adding value to society.
yeah, yeah. It depends on who your parents are. Like you may end up with a lot of money and they may think, oh, this is your money you can go spend. But a lot of people don't think that. They're thinking, hey, this is family money. And certainly I'm going to live off of it, right? But I'm responsible for growing this to pass it to the next generation.
So that's an interesting thing because I know one of the companies I used to work for was a scrap metal recycling company,
Hmm.
and it was bought out by a large privately owned one. Yeah, yeah, and that privately owned one though, it's like three or four generations of family that own that,
Yeah.
and apparently the way they structure the business is the children don't inherit the company, the grandchildren do.
Oh, interesting. It's like a generation skipping
And,
trust.
and by doing that somehow, and everyone works for the company, so they're all making money. They're all living off of the company and the
Yeah.
wealth it generates. But by somehow skipping that, it keeps like the parents then value the company on behalf of their children,
Yeah, right. Right.
right? So it's a way to somehow protect the family value over time, I guess, and maybe there's tax reasons for it as well. This is where you start getting into the way rich people treat money and taxes,
Very
and
different.
it's really interesting how it works. One of the things I really want to do is I want to pay my daughter to do work for me.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a rental property, so I need to find a way to structure it so I can pay her so that she can take the money as a teenager, put it into a 401k or a Roth IRA,
Yeah.
and by the time she graduates college, she may not have to worry about retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that's such a powerful thing. The idea of, like how much money I put into retirement. If I didn't have to put that money into retirement, I would have so much more money available to me today.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. 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 I mean, I know if you watch Dave Ramsey, he's really interesting. I mean, I'm gonna try to get wealthy in the next few years, actually. So I have the option of not doing anything. And then it's so interesting because you hear Dave Ramsey and other wealthy people talk. They're like, in their mind, this idea of retirement is just like, what are you talking about? I'm never going to retire, right? I'm going to work all the time.
Yeah, to me, the idea of retirement is you don't do the 9 to 5 job anymore. You do something else. That doesn't mean you don't make money and you don't work,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
right? Now, but some people, they continue to manage a company or whatever, right? Well into their 70s and 80s, and people owning delivery businesses, right? You
yeah,
get yourself a FedEx route or a UPS route, and you hire the trucks and you run that, and that's a business.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's not a sexy job, but it's one everyone that needs to exist out there, and there's people willing to pay for it,
That's
and
sexy
you
stuff.
can make a living off it.
I kind of got this in my, I got kind of a little convicted or feeling a little guilty because I'm like 58. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to start winding down and I just need to make a little more money and then I think I'm going to be good actually. And I'm up there like watching Trump. The dude's like 78 years old actually. He ain't winding anything down, So I mean, it's like my God, if he can do that, I should be able to do a little bit of work. I should be able to start a YouTube channel and like make something in my garage. So I felt a little guilty about that.
Yeah. Again, what does he do for fun?
He works, man. I don't know what he does for fun. Well, oh, he eats McDonald's for
I
fun.
mean, when you look at someone who's still heavily active in
Yeah.
their 70s and 80s, what is it they do to, that they would consider their downtime?
I don't know. I mean, I know from what I understand, not that I know much about Trump, but he doesn't sleep very much. I was watching some of his ex-staff who was being interviewed and was like, dude, this guy is like texting me at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's nonstop. He's got some
Yeah,
idea, or let's do this, or
I'm waiting for the invention that puts you into deep sleep immediately, so you can cut out the restlessness, so you can get down to under 4 hours sleep a night and still be rested.
yeah, it's a very yoga concept. I mean, there's a yoga book I had at some point that talked about that. They're like, it's not that you don't need 8 hours of sleep. You need two or three of this really REM deep sleep actually, and the rest of the time is just getting yourself in state to get there. So they do it through meditation and other techniques actually.
Well, I mean, things like working out to exhaustion before you go to bed,
Yeah.
things like ice baths. All these things are supposed to have an impact on your stress levels and your ability to enter deep sleep.
Well, look
But
at Clement. Clement. People don't know who Clement. Clement's this old guy in our Toastmasters group actually. The dude's like freaking 1,000 years old, I think,
he goes to bed at 9 p.m. and wakes up at 2:30 every day,
and he
a.m.
works
every
out.
day. I
And
mean,
the guy hasn't aged a day in like 20 years. He still looks exactly the same.
all the more power to him. I mean, the I do wonder though, right? Like, so I leave the TV on a lot because I grew up with a TV,
Yeah.
right? I grew up with TV was my babysitter as a kid, so
Yeah.
TV on in the background is comforting.
Yeah.
Do you know how slow time goes when I don't have the TV on in the background?
I don't know.
It feels
Oh,
like the night is twice as long, and maybe I want it to be twice as long. Maybe I should want to have more time in the day.
well, there's something about just being quiet and being. I was watching this, I don't know, it's like Wrangle Star, this old cowboy guy, and he gives all this advice or whatever like that.
I've seen him. Yeah, he
You know what I'm
he does a
talking
lot of like firefighting stuff too, doesn't he?
I'm not sure. I know a lot of it's around campfire and stuff like that. But he's like, sometimes you just got to don't do anything and just sit there and smoke your cigar and think, without actually trying to do something. And I think that's so important. And I'm supposed to use the word I'm so afraid to have so much downtime because I'm afraid that I'm going to get bored. So I've got to constantly be making up some kind of a shit to do to just pass the time away.
See, my thing is like, I like to have time at the end of the night after the rest of the family has gone to bed
Yeah.
in order to just be on my own and by myself. And I think
That's perfect.
maybe, well, the problem is my daughter now goes to bed later.
Okay.
So it actually means I go to bed later, which means I get less sleep, which is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, I think I need to find other ways to be apart from people to give me that alone time. And then the other thing I need to do is maybe make a list of the 5 things that's okay to do during my downtime.
Oh,
So during my downtime, maybe I can exercise because I don't do that regularly enough.
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe during my downtime, I can learn a course online. I've got like a dozen courses queued up in various
Perfect.
websites.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just say, I'm going to do an hour of that. Um, and actually make like an approved list of activities for my downtime so that I don't sit there and wait and just waste time watching whatever crap is on TV.
Well, you can't do that. We gotta blow the TV up, actually, right? TV's just all around bad, actually.
Well, I
Uh,
cut the cable like wow, gosh, 12 years ago,
oh, we
13
did
years ago.
too. Yeah.
And it never bothered me one bit.
Yeah.
People go, so we talk about things like people who, when they watched Game of Thrones and all these other shows. I haven't seen any of those.
Oh, interesting. Actually, you're probably not missing that much, actually. Um, so I need you to hold me accountable, and I'm going to hold you accountable to this too, because I watch way too much time. I waste a lot of time
Mhm.
in in my mind. I think, oh, I'm learning, I'm doing research. Actually, no, you're not. You're just entertaining yourself, right? And it's kind of fun. But to actually build something, right? That's the purpose of this podcast, is we want to like build something, want to make something. And I think there's just something really cool about doing that. I think we're creators, man. We're designed, created. I think, by God, I know you don't think this, but hopefully I'm going to win you over at some point. Um, that with a purpose. And we're supposed to make something. We're supposed to do something, not just, sit there and smoke our weed and watch Netflix reruns, right? Because it makes us feel good. I mean, we're designed for more than that, is my thoughts.
I want to say yes to that. One thing that comes to my mind though right now is,
You want to say yes, but I'm not going to.
well, no, because yes, I think the highest attainable value that a person can have is to create an add to the society around them,
To
create
make
an add
something, build something,
to the
help
world
something.
around them.
Yes, right,
And
right.
what that means varies from person to person, right?
Of course, yeah,
The other thing though is I also think that the tools that humans have been given
yeah,
of our brain, logic, and our problem solving abilities
yeah,
are just amazing.
yeah. We've got some
And
really nice skills. Yeah,
and that's where I get caught up in. So I get caught up in the thinking about. I get caught up in the analysis paralysis. I get caught up in the research and the planning and all that sort
yeah,
of thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And because of the world we live in, I'm not going to go hungry. If a hunter needs to go out and hunt to get food, and they're going to go hungry. I'm not going to go hungry if I don't get to that YouTube video that I wanted to record or
Yeah,
get to that whatever I wanted to build, right?
you're not
And
going
I
to
think
go
that's the
hungry.
problem is the drive is not there. The basic need to create isn't being driven by anything.
Yeah, no, no, it's got to come from within.
So,
It's eternal,
so
right?
this week
Sure.
I wanted to film. I practiced a couple songs, and I just wanted to film myself singing.
Beautiful. Do
Right?
it.
Whether I post it or not, I don't know. But so
That's
I
a
sat
rule.
there. I got my cell phone set up. I got my ukulele down. I was playing it, and it sounded like crap.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
So you know what I did? I spent the next 2 hours online researching how to make it sound better. And I'm like, okay, I need to get a soundboard. I've got these plugs over here for my amps. I got all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, and I didn't order the soundboard either. So it's like now I've got a lot of research that I've done, but I haven't pulled the trigger on any of it to get me to the next step to
Yeah.
be able to act.
Yeah. 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 I would say don't worry about that. Just play. That's easy to do later on.
Well, like right now, how does it sound on this? Does it sound
Um,
pretty good?
Honestly, it sounds mediocre. It sounds
Okay.
echoey and hollow. I'd like to see more like bass and you closer to the microphone. Your room's echoey a little bit. It's not bad, but it's
So
not
I mean,
not
this sounds better.
yes.
Yeah, the problem is when I'm up here, it's really hard for me then to play an instrument,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So then there are settings on this that I can fiddle around
Yeah,
with, and they change it from the directional mic to all that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, they have different things. And a lot of times you may need to go out, you may need to go out and spend some cash on getting a good camera and a good mic, you know?
Well, I've got a mic that I use for singing
Okay,
with an
okay.
amp, and
Yeah.
I've got the cords here, but I don't have a board to put it into the computer.
So get a
It
board.
goes
I mean,
into
like
an amp. So what I
$100.
need is a board that will put it all into one audio source so I can feed it into the computer,
Yeah, there
and
you
then
go.
I can control it. And that's what I was looking at. But like, okay, so here's one setting, here's another setting,
Yeah.
and here's the third setting.
I don't really hear anything. Really.
Okay. But if I back up, so if I'm back here and talking,
Yeah,
now I'm talking in a different setting,
yeah.
and this is the third setting. Is
Yeah,
that any difference?
it all sounds, I mean, I can hear you, but it all sounds bad.
Yep.
But I wouldn't worry about any of that. It's good enough, right? It's good
I
enough.
don't know, because when I'm playing, actually, let's turn off the sound cancellation.
That sounds good.
Does it really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, good
That's
enough.
the other problem I have is I'm kind of picky about how things sound when it comes to musical instruments
Yeah,
and
yeah,
voices.
and I am too, actually. And you could go out and buy like $1,000 shotgun microphone, and you could do this, and you could sound insulate your room, and you could do a bunch of things, and yeah, it definitely sound better, actually.
Yeah,
But
I've thought about sound insulating the room using blankets.
yeah, just like a bunch of sound blankets or moving blankets or something like
Yeah,
that, and it would sound better. It would sound flatter, right?
yeah,
Um, but just play, man. Don't worry about that right now. In fact, in fact, I think now with being in this kind of authentic mode, I think it's better that it's not perfect, actually. I mean, I remember way back when we were doing videos like 15 years ago, we did testing on videos and we found videos that were too polished performed worse than more authentic videos because people are just they crave authentic stuff right now. They crave it because they're like, just stop with the production and stop with the nonsense. I just want you, right? I just want to hear the real thing. And that's where we're going. That's why traditional media is going away, right? Freaking these little podcasts people are doing. I mean, you look at Joe
yeah. But
Rogan's podcast. He's not overly produced. I mean, yeah, his sound is good. He's got one dude in there like mixing stuff, but oh,
it still has a quality level to the sound, to the editing and the cuts and the like. I mean, there is still a professionalism there that's obviously paid for.
here's the thing though, man. When we cross, I know how to do all that stuff. Right? I'm well trained in that. When we cross 1 million views, I will fly out there personally and get you dialed in, and I'll pay for
When we cross a million views or subscribers.
whatever, 1 million something. I don't know.
Now, if you can get a million subscribers, you can hire people to do that stuff.
Exactly. There you go. Won't be a problem. The skill,
That's a reminder to get people to subscribe, right?
yeah, yeah, please subscribe. Yeah, exactly. Um, the real skill is in running your mouth in a way that people want to listen to. That's the skill. The production is like you can just go hire that out. It can be done in a day, you know.
Well, that's where what's his name on Sirius Radio, right?
I'm not sure who you're talking about, but
Oh, who's the New York disc jockey guy who
oh, you're talking about Howard Stern?
Howard Stern? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, there you go.
I mean that was his big thing, right? He talks to people and kind of pushes the limit of what's acceptable to talk on
Yeah.
open.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
shock jock. That's his sort of thing, you know, or whatever. But we will get there, Chris. We will get there and we'll dial in. But people are not going to say no. Listen, you don't need Hollywood, but what you do need is good lighting and just good sound. You know, just not crappy. And your lighting is really good right now. It's a beautiful light. Can you see the difference actually?
Um, I think so. What I noticed was with that portrait lighting blur,
Yeah.
it really focuses me being in the center of attention on this. So I really do like that,
Yeah.
and so I like the way that looks.
Yeah.
One of the things I did was I took a picture of the background
Yeah.
and I put it up as a background
Oh,
and
nice.
to see how it would look with me working around it. It
Yeah.
was just to see it. It was fun. Yeah, no, I've been playing with the lighting here. One thing I need to figure out is how to get that reflection out of the glasses.
Well, so this is not a lighting class, but what the hell, right? We can do anything we want in the early podcast. So think in terms of angle of incidence equals angle of reflection. So when you see a
Yeah, so
reflection,
I've got a curve on the glasses,
yeah,
and I've got a laptop here that's bouncing into the camera from that.
yeah, yeah,
Right. So I need to find an angle to put that on that would avoid that. Right. Because
yeah,
if I'm looking directly, like you can't see this the monitor up here
yeah,
reflecting back because
yeah.
that's going somewhere else. But this one here just happens to hit.
Well, a couple ideas is take your glasses off. You probably don't need them for this if you
Oh,
want.
I've got bad eyes. I would need to go. I would have to get.
Okay. Then you
I have
typically
to
have
start
to
wearing
photograph.
contacts.
You got to light from the sides then typically. So then whatever angle is will bounce because the only thing you're trying to avoid is light bouncing directly into the
Well,
camera.
you don't see it here,
Yeah, right. It's good.
right?
Yeah,
Because it's coming from here, but
yeah,
it's not reflecting into the camera. As
yeah,
soon as
right.
I go to here,
I start to see a little bit actually
yeah.
right there. Yeah. So just don't go there.
Then what I wonder if I put the. Do you see this over here? So now I've got.
That looks good.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so there is one over here too.
Yeah, that's what you
So
do. You can move your hand up to block that particular light that's causing that, and then you can set up a little flag. Just anything that'll just block out the light, so that little bit of light doesn't. I used to photograph bowls a lot and shiny stuff actually. And so what I would do is I would take, if I wanted to know where that light reflection was coming, I'd use a laser beam, little $5 laser you get for like playing with your cat or something like that. Go
hmm
straight from the camera lens and shine it on that spot, and that laser would bounce as to where the light was coming from that was creating the problem. So it's kind of going the opposite way. Then you're like, oh, I just need to block that little bit of light out. You can also you can get polarizing filters for your cameras. There's both. We could probably get a set of glasses with polarizing filters on your glasses. I mean, there's a bunch of ways you can.
I wonder if I used one of those privacy screen protectors on the laptop, would that be provide enough?
Then you got to just experiment all this sort of stuff.
Like, because that is polarized in essence.
Yeah, yeah, you polarize, right? Which basically
So then
polarizing
then
just means
then the light's only coming through one direction.
yeah, exactly right. Instead of the light going all over the place, you polarize and you just sort of focus the light in. Now, what happens when you do a polarizing filter, you lose a lot of light because you're blocking all that other sort of stuff, but you get rid of the glare and reflection and stuff like that. But you're good, man. You're good. You're good. Nobody's gonna not watch this because of I see a little reflection in your glasses. What they're gonna not watch it for is because you say dumb stuff, or I say dumb stuff. Or are we just boring?
I think if we say the right dumb stuff, that's
Well,
appealing
yeah,
in and of itself.
as long as like Howard Stern used to say, look, man, as long as you're absolutely enthralling, you can be on my show as long as you want. The moment you get boring, you're done mid-sentence. So
The speech I did today in Toastmasters was I read one of Paul Harvey's original The Rest of the Stories,
yeah,
and it was the one about, I think I told you it was about the Titanic fire. But then at the end, I mentioned, first heard that when I was 12 years old, and it's stuck in my head for decades.
yeah.
And I spent 20 years trying to find a recording of that, and last week I found a recording.
Awesome.
There's an internet archive that has all 600 episodes of his show that he
Oh my God,
recorded.
beautiful. Yeah.
And so I took that, I downloaded the MP3, I uploaded it to Google's Notebook LM, and said, write out the words to this.
Transcribe it. Yeah, right.
Transcribe it, yeah. And I did some corrections because it wasn't quite right. And then I popped it into the teleprompter, and I used that to read off of it.
There you go.
But I was saying, why did it stick in my head for 40 years?
I don't know.
Why is it still in my head? And I realized the reason it stuck in my head was because it didn't provide me any pictures. It was all words.
Oh, interesting.
And the reason why I love radio stories is because they can't describe everything over the radio that they can show me in a picture.
No, you
So
fill
that
it
means
in.
my mind has to fill in the
You
gaps.
gotta fill it
The
in.
creative parts of my brain have to fill in the gaps.
Yes.
So
Right.
in this story, I could see these mountains of coal on fire. I could see these firemen fighting the fire being dwarfed by a 4-story, pile of coal.
Yeah.
And so that's what made me remember that. And so I said, why are we told to add pictures to our blog posts? Why are we told to add slides to our presentation? Why are we told to add videos on social media? And the reason why is because everyone wants to imbibe as much data as fast as possible, consume it as quickly as possible, and video is the fastest way to do that. But then you're seeing someone else's interpretation. It's
Yeah.
not yours.
Yeah. Right.
So why is a book better than a movie? Because it's yours. You interpreted it through your
Yeah.
biases, through your
Yeah.
knowledge, through your experiences.
Yeah.
And so what I challenged everyone, go back, don't look at the video, don't look at at the picture,
Yeah.
and listen and read, and let your mind own this story that it's
Yeah.
creating.
Yeah. Yeah.
My I came up with a quote or a requote, I guess, is a picture may be worth 1,000 words, but a word can spark 1,000 pictures.
Yeah. 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 Words are powerful.
Words are ideas.
Yeah. You can plant them in people, and they can't be stopped.
No, because
Ideas.
I was even thinking like Trump when he got shot and he has that picture of him with his fist in the
Oh
air, right?
God,
Great picture, and I'm like that picture is worth 1,000 words, and yet what does that picture represent?
dude. That
The
when I
ideas that picture represents, right? The idea of fighting and the idea of patriotism and all the other aspects of what's in that picture.
yeah.
That's even more powerful than the 1,000 words that are in the picture. The
Oh my God,
ideas behind it.
of course, actually, because when I saw that picture, the one with the flag in the background, like I'm like, dude, this dude's just won.
Did you hear the
He's
photographer?
he's done. I heard he was kind of stressing out, like trying to get the right.
He was holding down, and it was taking all those pictures, as fast as possible. And he looked through it and he goes, "Oh my God!" and he got that picture.
Oh my God, you're like, oh my God, this is like that picture probably might define the entire work that photographer does for his whole life, actually.
That picture will be in history books. That
Oh
picture
yeah,
will be, when you're studying American history as a student in 20 years,
yeah.
that picture is going to be there.
That was an amazing picture. I mean, flag in the background, fist pumping, blood running down his cheek. I mean, holy crapola. You're like, this dude. I mean, even the people that hate him, you got to admit, okay, he's a different animal. This is a different thing. It's like most people talk, but he was standing up when he shouldn't have been standing up. Amazing. That's so freaking
Well,
amazing.
and so I really, what occurred to me is how would other people have reacted? Would they have stayed down?
Oh no, they would no, 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 no. See that what that did, and the reason people love that picture is what it represents is like this guy is real. He's not some phony.
Well,
This
his
guy is
security's trying to cover him. His security's trying to hold him down, and he's sitting there forcing his way up. And it couldn't have been planned better.
no,
And yet it happened. Naturally, and actually, when I looked at it, I'm like, was this planned? It was
yeah.
so good.
Well, a lot of people thought that it was planned. It had to have been planned, right, or whatever.
But I'm thinking, what? How quick a? Well, I really want to know. What goes through your brain in that situation? Some people would just stay down because they know it's safer.
Yeah.
But what is it in your character that says, no, I can't back down. I can't show cowardice. Or whatever. What is the thought that's going through your head
No,
at
he
that moment?
wasn't thinking I'm going to show cowardice. Dude, he's a freaking hunter. Hunters don't get afraid, right? He's a hunter, and he was pissed off. Like somebody kill that a-hole fast. It's
Yeah, I
just a
mean,
different thing.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of what the people who are examining, wow, how did the Democrats lose so badly and all the other things that happened, is one of the topics they talk about is was the Hispanic male vote went heavily to Trump, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the theory is that men have been emasculated so much over the past 30 years that they want to see strong masculinity.
They want to
The problem is strong masculinity is associated with toxic masculinity, which isn't the same thing, but that's how it's been spun for so long, that any masculinity, any strength or masculinity is seen as a negative. And I
yeah.
think a lot of men want to believe that no, it's not,
No.
and we need to accept the fact that masculinity is fine and a good thing.
Well, and I think you should be strong. Jordan Peterson talks about that men should be dangerous, right? And that,
Well,
but they
so that's an
willfully
interesting thing. Is like
choose.
you're someone doesn't need to be afraid of you, not because you're weak. They don't need to be afraid of you because you are strong enough to not need
Yeah, because you're
to
kind.
exert
Because people,
yourself.
yeah, because you want to protect people. It's like built in. Like there's just a certain amount of built-inness that I want to protect my family. And if you like come against me wanting to harm like my wife, I don't have any kids, but basically my I don't really care so much about myself, but harm my wife or my family or somebody I think is valuable, I'm going to go through every skill that I possibly can to stop you, actually. Could be a
And see,
gun. It could be this little pair of pliers. I'm going to stab you in the eyeball with it. It's like, you know,
and I actually don't. Even though we associate that kind of physical defense capability as a masculine trait, I don't assume of it as only a masculine trait. I see women, particularly mothers protecting their young, but I
oh
mean
my
women
God.
protecting their families and the like. Um, at work when you have to go through all those different trainings and like, and one of them is like the active shooter drill and all those type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that always goes in like, where's my desk? Where's the closest exit? How can I get there with the least amount of travel time and all that
Yeah.
sort of thing? But one of the things I also think about is who's around me.
Yeah.
Who
Right.
do I trust to act well in a pressure situation
Yeah.
like that,
You don't
right?
know. You don't
And
know until it comes
no,
up. You don't know.
I was like, thinking of a movie scenario where you catch a bad guy, tie him up, and you get his gun. Who would you
Yeah.
give the gun to?
Yeah. I
Who
wouldn't
who
give it to
who in the
anybody.
office around you would you feel comfortable handing that gun to?
I'm like, give me the freaking gun because I'm trained in using a gun, right?
Well, but see that's the point is. So if you're sitting in the desk next to me, then I'd say, "Hey, Scott, take this," right?
Yeah.
But it's because I trust that you have the skills, the knowledge, and the mindset to be able to use that,
Give me
and
that.
that you would also use that to help defend the people
I'm
around you.
like, give me that thing. This shit's gonna be over in 3 seconds if I have
So,
that thing, you know?
well, the idea is like, I know it sounds weird, but that's always been one of the things that goes in my mind is how would this person react in different situations? During an earthquake, how would they react? During a fire, how would they react? Yeah, and this is what's going through my mind when I'm judging my coworkers. I'm not just looking at how good are they at project management and how good are they at business analysis. I'm also thinking, what kind of situation, what kind of a person, or what kind of reactions would they have in a real life disaster
Yeah,
situation?
yeah, yeah. And I know you're gonna get sick of saying that's why you got to go to jujitsu because jujitsu is a way that you can simulate that. That man feels really freaking, really freaking real, actually. And you get to sort of be in a
Well,
controlled environment, but you could be able to put in that stress.
I like to know who's served in the
Yeah,
military around me.
yeah,
And I can usually tell. That's the other thing is you can often tell, right? Because there's a certain down to earthness, I guess. There's another way of saying that
down to
I
earth.
associate with someone who's been in the military.
Yeah,
Not everyone, but as a general rule, I think being in a situation where you've had to been faced more danger, been in a command structure like that, you just have a different way of thinking, or you have the ability to think in a different way.
and most of those people there like protect. I know when I get to go to the Tim Kennedy thing, I mean, he's got like tier one guys around him, right? Which is like above a Navy SEAL, like I don't know what they are, like Delta Force guys or something like that. And they are so kind and they are so nice or whatever. But he's like, just remember, these guys are super nice until they're not. But don't um don't confuse that for weakness, right? Because I will tell you, every one of these dudes that are sitting around, he was pointing to, has killed a bunch of people, actually. A bunch. Tens, 20, hundreds of people they've killed, actually. So be respectful of that dude. But those guys too, at the same time, they would be willing to sacrifice their life for a potential stranger, actually, because it's just how they're made. And it's like crazy, when you start to think about that. And that's the kind
Well,
of person I want to be.
but that's so it's a little sexist when you go back 100 years or something. But you would expect men to stand up for women in situations, right?
Well, I would hope
That was
that
the
men stand up
expectation.
for women now. I hope, right?
Unfortunately, I don't think it happens the same way because I think a lot of them would get socially attacked or verbally attacked if it's misinterpreted. And I think also in general we've shut down people get butting into other people's business, right?
Yeah, it's very common, but you got to
Instead of
train that.
looking at that and saying thank you for for trying to help out, I
Yeah,
don't need it would be the way to say thank you for stepping in and trying to help out. I'm perfectly fine. I don't need it.
yeah.
Would be the mature way to handle it. But it's just like stay out of my business. And if that happens enough, then you kind of just get pushed into whatever. So when you see someone that needs help, do you stop and help them? You know,
Well, it
like
depends.
the Good Samaritan laws. Why do you need a Good Samaritan law? Because people aren't Good Samaritans anymore.
Yeah, and there's no way that because I've had opportunities to help and I didn't help because I don't want to get involved or I don't want to do this or I'm later, I got something else to do. But these are horrible reasons that I'm actually shameful to admit. I mean,
Can you
I
stop
need
and
to
help
change.
someone change a tire on the freeway? Can you help push their car out of the way? Can
Yeah.
you, all those things?
And that can be for that person, it may not be a big deal for you, but that could be, I mean, you could literally set their whole life on a different course, right? Because they'd be like, somebody helped me when I needed help, and I got the example of how that worked. And so now I'm going to do that for others. I mean,
But
who knows what
that's
you're
also a
doing?
thing for you to be grateful for that I got the opportunity to help someone and it made me
Yeah,
feel good.
yeah, yeah,
And the selfish part of it is it made me feel good. But that's fine.
yeah, that's fine. But I don't think that's
You know?
selfish, though. That's good.
Yeah, I think that's the reward we get for doing good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's your reward. Yeah, that's
Right?
your reward.
Um,
That's
what's
your reward.
the book by Ayn Rand, The Fountainhead?
Not familiar with it.
Okay, it's a book 1930s, 20s, something like that.
Huh.
America, New York, these architects that make skyscrapers and the stuff and the like. And there's the main character is this architect who wants to build perfect things.
Okay.
Um, and he doesn't play politics. He's not he rubs people the wrong way because
Yeah,
he's
right.
just driven to do this thing.
Yeah,
And there's another guy who plays politics extremely
yeah,
well. And he's the guy who's always the poster child for doing things for the public and doing it. So there's this thing where they need to build a low income housing, right? And they go to this one guy and say, "Hey, you're really good at designing these things, and we know you're really
yeah,
creative. You could do this." So they give it to him to design, and he designs the ultimate low income housing.
yeah,
It's beautiful. It's got great lines. Everyone has their own room and all
yeah,
that kind of stuff. And then he gives it to this other guy, and they start changing the design. It's
yeah,
like they take out the doors because poor people can't have doors. Between the bedroom and the living room,
yeah,
and all these kind of stupid things. Yeah, the closets don't need to have doors because
yeah,
again, they don't and poor people. And it was this concept. And so what ends up happening is the guy ends up burning down his own creation because of the way they screwed it up.
because
And the one thing you learn throughout the entire thing is the one guy who played politics, who was always doing things for the community,
yeah,
was the selfish jerk who wanted the good feelings and the power that came
yeah,
out of that.
yeah,
And the guy who was the jerk was the guy who actually was doing the most for the
yeah,
community. I mean, that's kind of the takeaway that I had when I read it. It was like, it almost seemed to me like, why does someone do good? Are they selfish and they do good, or are they really doing good because they feel that's the right thing to do?
yeah. I don't know.
Does it matter? And then the question is, does it matter?
It matters to the person you're doing good for. I know that.
No, does it matter? I mean, if you do good for somebody and they get a result positive either way, does it really matter if you did good for selfish reasons or you did good for altruistic reasons? I
I
would
don't.
say that if you're gonna justify yourself when you're at the pearly gates, then yes, it matters. But in the world that you're living in, does it matter?
But see, I always see that's always my thing. I always know, or in my head, it's always back there. I'm being judged for what I do, right? And even though it may look good here, it's like I know somebody's judging me that actually knows everything. So you can't really hide. And that's where I'm kind of starting to move towards. And that's why I feel so guilty like when I get lazy and when I watch TV instead of when I'm creating something. Like I know, like I had this here, I'll just show you here. So I got this I've had this oscilloscope. Whoa, sorry, Chris. This was not planned. I got this oscilloscope and I bought it like 7 or 8 years ago. And it's like a decent quality one. It was like a couple grand or something like that. It was a nice one. And I've had that for like many, many years. And I've always been too afraid to use it because it's complicated. Like, oh, it's $2,000. And what if I put something in? What if I blow it up? Or what if I do this? Or how it's like got so many buttons on it. What do these buttons do? And finally, I decided that I want to learn how to use an oscilloscope because I wanted it as a tool. And I started watching a bunch of YouTube videos and I kind of worked through it, but there was nothing that was really great. And so for the past like few months, I'm thinking, oh, I need to make a whole series of YouTube videos on how to make an oscilloscope work and explain at a deep enough level that people can actually use it to measure things. And it's still sitting there, and I feel guilty every time I go by for the past 2 months. I'm like, the world needs that information, and I'm not providing it. So I feel guilty about that. And I don't know what that means. It's just how I'm feeling.
Well, you think you have a responsibility
Yeah.
to use the time you've been given
Yeah, right.
to add meaning or to be
To,
meaningful.
to be meaning to help other people. Yeah, to be meaningful.
Well, to be meaningful, and the meaning that you've applied to that is to help other people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To basically do God's work, which
Yeah. Well, no,
sounds
because if the meaning of your life was to gain as much power as possible,
yeah,
it would be
that's not my thing, right?
no, but that would be a different set. The point being, it's about the need for using your time meaningfully.
Yeah, you basically fulfilling my purpose that God gave me. And he gave me an oscilloscope, he gave me a house, he gave me plenty of money, he gave me a brain. And then I feel guilty because I'm not accomplishing my mission, you know?
Yeah, I feel guilty because I'm not 24/7 doing my job search, right? And because I have responsibilities to the family, I have responsibilities to my future and all of that. And so that's where I feel guilty. And I can justify, oh, well, at least I did this. I took this course. I added to this. I did that. But at the end of the day, there's a level of guilt for not spending 100% of my effort on this.
Yeah, and that
Even
can
though
be,
I
and
know
I don't think
that's not
that's
really,
healthy.
yeah. Even though I know that's an unrealistic scenario, that
Yeah.
is kind of what goes through my head.
I mean, most people will say, and I'm really good with this, that, if you typically work 8 hours a day, your job is to find a job and you work on it like it's your job until you get a job.
Yep.
But the rest of the time is yours. I mean, the rest of the time is free. So, but I think though, what might happen is it could be happen that this could take off a little bit. Who knows? Maybe we start making a little bit of money at some point for it. Probably not, but who knows? Maybe, right? We get a little lucky. But then you
Yep.
start doing it. So you start building stuff. You start getting a following, and your job might be something very different. You may not have the traditional job. You go to work, and somebody tells you what to do. You may have a lot more autonomy, which is a good thing.
One of the things that and we talked. Did we talk about this last time? Was Elon Musk in starting the Department of Government Efficiency?
Yeah, a lot of people are getting excited about that.
Yeah, but yeah. So I went to the Twitter page or the X page and read up on it, and I don't I don't like what most people are saying. It really comes across as like, oh, we're gonna cut this program, oh, we're gonna cut that program. I'm like, that's not what efficiency is about.
Yeah,
Those were just bad decisions funding
yeah,
things that shouldn't have gotten funded.
yeah,
The problem isn't the program that got funded. The problem is the process that allowed it to get funded in the first
yeah,
place.
yeah.
If
But
you
that's
got a
just,
whole bunch of things that shouldn't get funded, the process is broken,
oh yeah, the process is always broken, right?
right? And
It's
so
human.
what we need to do is we need to, yes, we need to cut waste. I get that. But you want to talk about efficiency, you need to go through and figure out what are the processes that are broken. How can we make them better? How can we standardize them? How can we, get economies of scale you've got 20 million people working for the government. There's got to be economies of scale in HR, in IT,
Of
in
course.
finance, in all of those aspects.
Yeah.
Payroll. You know, I have no idea how many different payroll systems that are used by the U.S. government.
Oh, you could bet it's like you could bet that you probably wouldn't be able to design it any worse. It's
Oh no, no, no,
you
no.
probably
But
wouldn't be able to think that.
but then again, you can't just go in there and say we're changing all this. There's a reason it is the way it is, and they could be
There's always a
crappy
reason.
reasons, but there's
Yeah,
reasons why it is the way it is.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
you need to understand. Oh yeah, the reason why we are using this outdated system is because half the locations that our facilities are at don't have the capabilities to have a high speed enough network to be able to handle this new
yeah,
system.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, so then the problem is not, the problem of having multiple systems isn't the fact that we made a bad decision. The problem is that we don't have the capabilities to do it. Well, maybe we need to concentrate on building the capabilities
yeah.
to support that,
Well, and
right?
the
It's
constraints were different. 20 years ago, you didn't
Yeah.
have high-speed internet.
Well,
And when you
yeah,
got it, it didn't
and I
even work
also,
like that.
but I also don't think the easy thing would be the best thing would be to go into one department and then just clean house, because I don't think that's going to get the results you want, because you're not going to be able to clean every department in 4 years.
Right, right.
So what you're going to need to do is, like, you pick the processes, you pick the shared services, you pick whatever that you want to optimize to
Yeah,
make them efficient, and then you make those work. And
yeah,
then you set the tone, the culture within those organizations to think about this process improvement,
yeah,
and
yeah,
let that grow into other shared services in other areas.
yeah,
And at some point, you're going to have to tackle what each department specializes in, right? What is your key function that you do that no other department does? Because that's the thing that you really need to get clear on. Everything else that supports that is a support function.
yeah,
Important, but not noticeably different than any other company's version of
yeah.
that.
Yeah, but
But
there's
I do think we need some low hanging fruit to start. Right? You need to get something to. You need some wins,
but that's
and
not
that's
the
where
optimization.
the program cleaning, cleaning up some of the funding of weird programs comes into play.
Well, let me just put it this way. The fat guy is not going to put himself on a diet. It's gonna it's gonna have to be done externally,
Well, honestly, this is something that has bothered me for, gosh, at least 30 years. Bureaucracies grow;
Of course,
they
that's what
don't
they do.
shrink.
They just
Right?
feed
This
me,
is
feed.
why that quote about was it the tree of liberty must be fed by the blood of or whatever the heck it is, right?
Yeah, right.
The idea that and back to my gardening analogy, you need to prune things to get it to grow better,
Yeah, right. Exactly.
right? So we may be good at five things,
Yeah,
but we don't have the energy to do five things.
right.
So cut off two of them, three of them, leave one or two, and let those grow.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Right? It's like when you go to a company that has 15 different product lines, so much so that they can't put any effort into improving any one of them.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right?
Well, and that was
Concentrate on one.
common. Remember, like when Steve Jobs came back, they were working on Apple was working on how many projects, and he basically said, "We're going to stop all that. We're going to work on three or four things, and that's where our focus is going to be."
Well, didn't they have the Newton, the first handheld
Yeah,
or
they
whatever it
happened,
was?
and he would ask
And I
questions.
remember, I remember my friend was so angry when they stopped working on that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. I know. But a guy like Musk would probably be a good one to head that stuff up because his brain just naturally thinks like that. Other people don't. Like
yeah.
I
So
was,
so my main concern when you apply business principles to government
yeah.
is that government doesn't really have the same metrics as business.
Well, and even business principles are not totally optimized, right? I mean, capitalize,
Well, no, but
capital.
but the idea is you wouldn't go to the military and say you need to be efficient over effective.
Well, yeah, you do. They do that all the time, actually.
Over effectiveness, efficiency over effectiveness.
Oh, not over. No, no, no. You want to be
No, no,
effective.
no, because this is the other thing is you don't have 10 priorities. You got one priority.
Yeah, you got one project. Yeah,
Then you got a secondary, and then a third tertiary.
yeah.
But the point is, all decisions are made off the first priority,
All the decisions. Yeah.
right? So when it comes to the military, they've got to be effective.
Well, and it's
Whatever
interesting.
you're trying to do,
Yeah,
project force, remove whatever, you need the ability, you need to be effective at that.
effective.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then you can start thinking about the efficiency of it, how
Yeah.
well you do it, how much it costs, and the like.
Well, it's so interesting because I was watching this one. He was a SEAL guy or special forces guy or whatever, and he's like, basically, the only way we judge things, because they were talking about women being in like tip of the spear stuff, he's like, absolutely not. They're not there, right? They're just 30% slower. They're not as strong. They're just not as effective, right? They're just not. And he goes, when we do missions, the way we think about things is, are we more lethal or less lethal making this decision? That's it. It's like
So that's your priority.
that's our priority. So there's 10 dudes up on that hill, and we're gonna go kill them
So
as
to me,
fast as
that's
possible.
effectiveness, but the effectiveness is specifically lethality,
Without, yeah, we want to kill those 10 guys. Yeah.
right? Yeah. So yeah, now depending on what you're going for, so you go to every department and you figure out what their job is, what is
Yeah.
their remit,
Yeah.
and are they effective at their remit?
Yeah.
They need to be effective at their remit. Then you start saying, okay, what stuff are you doing that isn't making you more effective?
Yeah.
What stuff, right? And you start cutting back on that, or changing it, or or optimizing, whatever it is, that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
separately, you go to the stuff that you're effective at and say, okay, can we make any of this stuff more efficient
Yeah.
and still remain effective?
Well, and most of the time it's combined together. I mean, you're breaking them out, which probably makes sense, but most of the
Well,
time,
I'm breaking them out because we all businesses, everyone does this today. It's like, my priorities are A, B, C, D, and E.
yeah, right.
You got no priorities. That's
Yeah.
not a priority.
Right.
You've
Right.
got five things you want to do.
Yeah.
Pick one,
Five objectives. But you
right?
choice it down, but today I'm going to work on this, right? And
No, but
today,
to me, it's like, no, it's like the one thing trumps all of others, and then there's a secondary, so if I had to make a decision, and only one of those, I can only have one of those things as a result. What's the one thing I want as a result? And
see, the
for
problem is
business, it might be profits. It might be sales. It might be something else. For government, it's about the effectiveness of their remit.
well,
After you've done that, then you can start talking about operational excellence and efficiency and all that kind of stuff.
but see, that's not what people optimize. People optimize for how can I keep my job, right? How could, what do I have to do to not get fired?
Well, that's the way bureaucracies work, right?
Yeah.
Because this is a problem in companies too. Is like, you don't stop doing the old stuff.
Yeah. Well, and remember, there's no such thing as really a company per se. A company is a group of people, right? That have
Yeah,
a
I mean, they have their own culture, but the idea being that you've got an entity that it takes time and effort to stop doing something,
yeah,
right? Uh, when I remember when I first heard of the data management life cycle,
hmm,
right? Data comes in, you manage it, you use it for different things, and at some point you retire it and you purge it, you delete it.
yeah, right, yeah,
But the effort to tag it and identify it as old, and then to remove it from the system and purge it,
yeah.
actually costs money and time.
Costs money and time. Yeah,
And so it ends up getting cut. One of the first things to get cut when you're trying to save money is the purge cycle
yeah,
of anything. Business process life cycle.
yeah,
Anything has a life cycle. There's a death part, a removal part,
yeah,
a
yeah,
retirement part. And the problem is, because there's no immediate gain from that,
yeah,
that gets cut when you need to make cuts. And then it doesn't come back. And what ends up happening is, after several years of not having a cleanup process, you have really bad hygiene on whatever it is.
yeah,
Data
yeah.
process hygiene, process improvement hygiene, whatever it is.
It's a
You
mess.
lose the ability to throw out the bad stuff.
Yeah,
You lose the ability to poop it out,
yeah, yeah. You got to poop.
right?
That's why
Like,
we
imagine if people didn't poop, what would happen?
well, you go back up. Yeah, you wouldn't be
So that's the
comfortable.
government. The government needs to learn to poop. So the Doge has to train the government to poop.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to figure out what the toilet paper looks like.
And then what I would like to do besides that is let's stop eating so much, so then we don't have to poop as much, actually. Let's eat just enough to be able to do what we want to do in a little bit of comfort zone, but we don't need people walking around 300 pounds. We just don't
No,
need.
but I think there's a lot. See, the thing is, there's so many nuances to the and complexity
So
to
many
this.
nuances.
It's like, this is something that needs to get done.
Yeah,
Do we hire the people to do it internally? Do we hire a third party to do it?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, the third party is going to be expensive. Yes, it's going to be expensive, but we can fire them when we want to.
yeah, right.
We can have them scale up and scale down as needed. We don't have to hire people and put them on the payroll forever. We can
Right.
just use them when we need them and not. So
Yeah.
yes, we're going to have a higher cost
initial upfront
transaction,
cost. Yeah, right.
but it may not be a higher cost overall.
Yeah, of course not.
And,
Yeah,
and the reason is how much work can they get done? If the
yeah,
person that you hire externally does twice as much work for
yeah,
half again more money,
yeah.
it's actually cheaper.
Well, and that's a common thing. I mean, contractors in government is super
Yeah.
common. You know,
So people complain the contractors are getting paid too much, but then if you look at how if the government were to do it themselves, it would cost more.
way more. Yeah,
Right. So that's one of the things you need to look at is are we wasting money there? And then when you start looking at those $400 screws and $2,000 toilet seats and all the kind of things that they've talked about in the past
yeah,
is why?
yeah. Well, there's a lot of reasons, right? Because you want to have if you're a congressman in that area, you need to make sure this company's getting jobs, and oh, I
Well,
got
okay, so let's
22
take the
jobs.
politics out. Why would you want possibly pay more for something than you can mass produce it at? And the
Why would
thought
you?
is, well, standardization means I need a specific one,
Yeah,
and that means I have to have certain companies that can make it. And in order for those companies to remain profitable and stay in business, they need a certain amount of business.
yeah,
So
right.
I need to contract a certain amount, which means I have to commit to a certain cost
You have to
for
commit.
them. If I only need 1,000 a year, but they need to make $100,000 a year, then I need to pay $100 each,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
If I need 200 of them and they own and it's 100,000 a year, then it's $50 each.
yeah, right.
So there's all kinds of aspects that people don't really consider when it comes to that. Not only that, it's like if it's something that's mission critical, I need to have it on demand, which obviously costs more money.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
need to have people sitting around on their butts
yeah,
waiting for things to break.
yeah.
That costs more money.
That
Right?
costs
All
more
those
money.
types of things are aspects to this, and business is really good at coming up with solutions to minimize that. Well,
Yeah,
let's cross train those people so they can do something else,
yeah, right, right, right.
something else that's less mission critical,
Yeah,
right? And that's something. Maybe that's what we do. We take all our people who are mission critical, who aren't busy 100% of the time, because we don't want to be having them putting out fires 100% of the time. We want them to only put out fires when they have to.
yeah.
In the other 80% of the time, what are they doing? I don't know. Maybe they're going out and painting murals at kids' schools. I have no idea what they're doing, but they're doing
Well,
something.
that's very unpopular because the taxpayer is like, I don't want you painting murals 80% of the time. I need you working full time, right? Because
Yeah,
if you don't need to work full time, then 10 of you need to go because you're overstaffed.
yeah, but when you need them, right? So
Oh yeah,
that's when a contractor makes sense.
yeah, 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 yeah,
You put you pay the contractor 50% more than you would pay your own staff, but then
yeah.
you don't have to have them all the time.
You don't have to have them all the time. Yeah, right, right. Because you're like, I need more money because I just need more money, right? Because
Yep.
you want this thing done when you want it done. I'm gonna have to allocate and do resources, and there's a certain amount of waste in there, and you need to pay for that waste.
So it's like in my mind, there's probably 20% waste across the board that can be cut.
Oh, I think at least 50. I'd go
No,
70.
I'm thinking 20
20.
without. Sorry, let me put it this way. There's 20% across the board that can be cut without major investments in new systems and reorganizing
Okay,
that
with minimal to no pain.
with moderate pain. I'm going to say moderate pain.
Yeah,
Some things slow down, and what'll happen is the departments will learn to optimize
of
within
course.
the realms of their capabilities.
Yeah,
Then there's the analysis. You go in and say, okay, what else can we improve on? If I give you better systems, if I standardize your systems,
yeah,
if I do all this, right, can I get economies of scale? And then when you start thinking about it from that aspect, there's probably another 20 to 30% right there,
yeah.
right?
We'll
Then
see.
you identify the mission critical things and say, okay, these have to be done by specialists, and they're only going to be able to work 60% of the time, 70% of the time because we need flex or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Now, but your HR department should have very little flex. Maybe they're 90% utilized, and they
mhm,
only have 10% to work on other stuff.
yeah,
Whereas your IT coders and stuff, people who you want to be able to improve systems, maybe they're 70% utilized with
yeah,
30% right.
yeah,
It's like the old Google Maps and Google Mail was all invented by engineers who were given time to create.
yeah,
Right. So the idea is if you were to go in and say, all right, these are the types of jobs we have. These are the ones that require specialized knowledge, and we want them to spend X amount of time making it better. Right? I see value in that.
Well, yeah, I don't know. That's what we're going to optimize for. I don't know that people want efficiency. People want stability. They want stable. They want to
Well,
eat.
then don't call it the government efficiency because then it's a lie.
But How do you know if a politician's lying? His like mouth is moving.
Well, because
That's
yeah, I'm assuming it's Musk that came up with the name, and if that's the case, I honestly think he believes in efficiency.
no, I no Musk does. Yeah, Musk is a he's a freaking alien, man. He's from another planet.
Someday,
He's
he can be the first citizen on Mars, right? But I agree in that sense. But this is the thing. This is hard, which is why governments don't do it. Why
super
bureaucracies
hard.
don't
Yeah,
do it. This is why
yeah,
even companies are bad at this,
yeah, yeah.
right? Because it takes it's willingness to change. It's an enforced change. It's an
People don't
openness
want to
and a
change.
desire to change.
Yeah, people don't want to change.
No, I want to do the same job I've done for the past 20 years, and I want you to give me more and more money every year to do it.
But they want it to be
That,
easy and
where the hell is the reason behind that? No, 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 no. Every year you need to be providing me more and more value, so
yeah,
I'm
right.
paying you more and more.
Yeah, right.
And how you add value is there's a variety of ways. Maybe you do more work. Maybe you
Right.
handle more complex situations,
Of course.
or maybe you figure out a way to that everything can be done faster and cheaper.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you know. But the point is to do the same thing over and over and expect promotions and pay raises. That's a problem.
That's just human nature. That's just the government work, man. That's just they
Well,
just
that's one thing where I do think the unions screwed us over
yeah.
because the unions had such bargaining power and that's how they structured it, right? Someone who was a 20-year union member versus a 5-year union member got paid more because they were at a different level within
Yeah,
the
but
union.
unions came about because workers were so mistreated. So it's like, as usual, things swing too far this way, and then they come back, and then they just swing around. Everything's a cycle, you know.
Well, right now the biggest unions are government unions,
You know.
and that's going to be an interesting thing for them to tackle, right? The government union. We may be going back to Reagan and the air traffic controllers.
See?
We may be going into a situation where they go in and say, you know what? I don't care about your union. We're getting rid of you're going to take this cut, or we'll just replace you.
Yeah,
And that might mean for 6 months that department is crap.
yeah, 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 yeah.
In which case, the government would use emergency powers to make sure that the mission critical stuff stays
Yeah.
upright.
That's kind of crazy. Yeah. Okay, Chris, we've been at this for more than 2 hours. So let's wrap this thing up with our commitments. What are we going to do before we meet again?
So I've got an article I'm going to write for LinkedIn.
Okay.
I've got a couple of options there that I'm debating on. And then I'm going to record, I think, at least 3 short videos of me singing stuff.
Wait, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So for our 7 followers that are actually watching this video, actually, put down in the comments what you're going to do. It's like we're really curious to see what are you going to build? What are you going to make? What value are you going to create? And it could be anything. It doesn't matter, actually.
Just think of it as adding. What are you going to add to the world around you?
What am I going to add? Yep.
Right?
And it could be that you're going to bake some cookies for your church. Awesome. I love that.
You're going to fix the doorknob on the bathroom door.
Whatever it is, right?
You're going to
Just
slide, whatever it is. You're going to go and you're going to say hi to a bunch of people that you've never said hi to before.
it doesn't matter.
Make
Yeah.
them happy for the day.
I just remember
You're
my
going to
dad.
compliment somebody. Well, that's
Yeah,
a good thing.
yeah. Yeah, and I just remember my dad of just beating into my head, like we'd go camping or whatever it is. He goes, like, whatever you do, and you may not always do it, but at least have the intention of, is that whenever I touch anything or connect with anything, I'm gonna leave it slightly better off than it was before I got to it.
That's like when you borrow a tool from somebody, you make sure to clean it and put it in good condition when you give it before you give it back to them.
Yeah,
It's
this
like
is
you,
just freaking common courtesy. Like if you borrow somebody's truck or a car, just fill the damn tank up, you know? I mean, you know how much it sucks? Like somebody borrows something from you and they're like, and you give them a half, oh, sorry, dude, you're out of gas. So before you drive, you need to put more gas in the car or whatever. And you're like, I'm gonna do that. And what I'm also gonna do is never ever loan you anything ever again.
it's it's consideration.
Just
The last
basic.
time I complained about inconsiderate drivers, it's thinking about others and not yourself. It's not
Yeah,
being so self-centered.
yeah, not just a little bit. And that's not saying you don't. That's you don't become a martyr. We're not saying that, or I'm not saying that. But I'm like, at least maybe just give the other guy just a little bit of attention. You still get most of it. You can still be a narcissist. That's fine. But instead of doing 100% narcissist, maybe you're 90%. You give the other guy 10%. Hey, we're making progress. Which is good.
It should just be something that you default to, right? Whenever
Well, don't
someone
do
else is
that.
involved.
Don't default to your standard. Well, hopefully you have good character, but most people are.
No, when you're at home and you're working on your own stuff,
Yeah,
you don't need to worry about others per se. But when you're out in the world and you're interacting with other people, you need to think about other people.
you need to think about other people. Yeah.
Yeah. The one that gets me is sorry, this is a pet peeve. In the grocery store, you're pushing your cart, and somebody stops with their cart in the middle of the aisle and goes
Yeah.
off to do something.
I love it.
And I'm like, I will go past the place I'm trying to stop, and I'll move my cart out of the way to the side so that people can get by me.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I
You
know.
know,
People are just so wrapped up. Yeah.
all it takes is for you to consider, I don't want to be in the way. Let me get out of the way.
And it takes you 2 seconds just to move your cart over, actually. And then I want to engage you guys again, the audience. Put what your pet peeves. That's a good one. What are your pet peeves?
Oh, I
What
got so many pet
drives you
peeves.
crazy? You only get one today, Chris. We'll give you another one later. But in fact, one of these days we'll do a whole episode just on pet peeves.
Oh, that would be cool. Oh, I got to start writing down my pet peeves. Oh, yeah.
There you go. Okay, with that, are done? Any last parting words of wisdom from you?
What did I have? Oh, so before I was saying be curious,
Yeah.
I think I changed that.
Okay.
Embrace curiosity.
Embrace it. Okay.
I like the word embrace.
Yeah.
So embrace curiosity.
Like a little kid.
Yeah.
Like a little kid.
Let the emotion come out. Be
And it
curious.
just rained and he's thrown into a
Curiosity,
puddle.
but embrace it. Enjoy
Yeah.
it. Love it.
Yeah. I know Neil deGrasse, whatever, whatever that guy.
DeGrasse Tyson, yeah.
Yeah, the astrophysicist guy. He was talking about a little kid like going through a puddle and jumping in it and his mom freaking out. And he's like, oh my gosh, this kid is like learning about fluid dynamics, right? At this particular so like
Yes.
it's like, oh my gosh. Okay, with that, Chris, let's wrap this thing up actually. See you soon.
See ya.